Welcome to South Harmon.
Wednesday night AMA, we are live and in the building. Hope everyone is having a good week. Adam, I know mine is getting better. It's Super Bowl this Sunday, and guess what, buddy? The weather is getting better. All right, we're going to be almost 40 tomorrow. Almost 40.
Yeah, it's hopefully coming our way. I think it is anyway. When I was looking at the forecast, it was not completely frigid here today. It was cold, but none of this zero and negative shit like DB.
Yeah, I'm done with this shit.
DB reached out to let me know that he's got prior engagements and won't be at AMA, which kind of hurt me, but also at the same time, I'm like, damn, that's pretty awesome. He's giving me notice, like he's got an RSVP or something. It was awesome.
RSVP, the AMA. Oh, we love you, DB. Imagine what kind of prior engagements you have, because it's probably like negative 40 degrees Celsius or wherever the fuck he's at.
Dude, well, I was about to say, shout out to whoever you're out with, buddy. Good for them too to make it out of the house in those conditions.
Hell yeah, Adam.
We got Super Bowl week, which. Super Bowl week's weird, right? You kind of get the week off, and you get real excited for the build up, the anticipation. I think is the big thing. But then it's weird at least for me, because I know I'm real excited for it. It's such a big deal. But then it's like that moment where there's this really big lull and hole, crater in your soul. It's going into effect, and at least that's what I get the feeling the week leading up to it. But before we get to the bad, how about the good? This game, anyway, one, I think, Mike, is not what people had. I don't think anyone had the combination especially, right? I think a lot of people didn't have either one of these teams in the Super Bowl, let alone the combo. Mike, I have Drizzy up here, Drake May. Fizz says the Patriots way will be the way. I'm curious for you, buddy. Where are you at with your overall thoughts on, let's just talk winner. Who do you anticipate, or how do you expect the game to go? Who do you anticipate will win?
Whichever quarterback can make the plays. There's two fantastic defenses that have played really well, and by all accounts,
they have.
For the most part, I know Sam Darnold. We talked about it last week. He had a monster game in the championship and played really well. But for the most part, their successes this season and in the playoffs, when it's mattered most, has been built on whichever defense has kind of carried them more.
Sure.
Drake May, I know it was a snowstorm for about a quarter and a half, right? But up until that point, for about 2.5 quarters, he did absolutely nothing.
Well, I wanted to talk about that.
His championship game.
I do want to talk about the game and the plan and a little bit here before. But I just, so overarching, you think this, you're kind of basically saying that you think this should be a good game, and it should be within the plays on the field that are going to be who determines the winner. I like it. I honestly hope that's what we get. We've had the rare situation where it's a blowout Super Bowl. Nobody wants that.
The last year's Super Bowl, it's gonna feel sad, man, because last year I got to watch Super Bowl with Schumer in person. Stayed at my house. We watched the Eagles win.
Buddy, we were all. I'm not even an Eagles fan. We were all in heaven. Saquon was getting me jersey after jersey.
It was awesome.
He had an unbelievable playoff run, and then he won the Super Bowl.
But like last year's Super Bowl, while Jalen Hurts played really well and he was the MVP of that game, I think anybody with any kind of football sense or like eyes would be like, that game was won with the Eagles' defense and the way that defensive line got after Patrick Mahomes, and they couldn't do shit on offense. Like, that game never really was close just because of how dominant the defense was.
Sure.
So it's easy to say whichever quarterback plays better is going to win the Super Bowl, but I think it is absolutely imperative. And at the end of the day, whichever quarterback can make 1 or 2 plays more than the other guy, I think is going to have the advantage, and that's who's going to be Super Bowl champion. And I don't know whether it's going to be Drake May or whether it's going to be Sam Darnold.
Sure.
I don't really have a rooting interest in this one. I've kind of been a de facto Patriots fan over the last couple of years, just because they're a nice story, right? Like, all the success they had, I hated them with a fucking passion, just like probably most of the country. We're just tired of them. And then they went into this, Mac Jones era, Bailey Zappi era, and Drake May's been one of my favorite quarterback prospects for a long time. And then to see him in the league and have success, like, it's fun to root for him. And him being in his second year in the Super Bowl, that's fun. But Adam, there's this thing in the back of my mind, this little tiny thing in the back of my mind that I feel like if I root too hard for the Patriots,
you're going to be the curse.
I'm not going to be the curse. I'm going to be the reason that we start another Patriots dynasty, which I couldn't fucking handle. All right, I don't want to see this.
All right.
Nobody wants to see this
Fair
shit,
enough.
right? So I might actually be pulling a little harder for the Seahawks, right? Like, oh, we don't want the Patriots to win again. Like, it was good you got here. Congratulations, good job, Drake May. I don't want to fucking see you win. I don't want another 8 Super Bowls on Mike Vrabel's resume now and start another dynasty.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to pivot here. There is Sam Darnold just got mentioned in the comment. This is no shade to Sam Darnold, actually, but I wanted to talk about this point. I think, to me, this is interesting, Mike, and I don't know. I would venture to say it doesn't actually. It's not going to matter in the big picture as far as for dynasty purposes, right? How it's going to change. But one of the things I was thinking about, especially last week with the lull, you have no game. Just kind of thinking about narratives and, this is the 60th Super Bowl, right? So you got a lot of. You and I have watched a ton, and we were also not privy or not able to watch plenty prior. Like, I was going through and thinking in my head, right? And in particular, what's interesting about Dynasty Fantasy Football, we're pretty much really focused, obviously in Superflex with quarterbacks, but especially with starting pretty much, everyone universally pretty much started with one quarterback, the skill players. But running backs and quarterbacks, and tight ends for that matter, really have not been like, they're not in a sport this much of a game sport, the defining reason that teams win a Super Bowl, right? And I think that was what was so interesting about Barkley, which was also weird that the Chiefs sold out to stop Saquon and also sold out to give Jalen Hurts the runway to just tear him apart because they sold out so hard to stop the run.
Yeah.
On the flip side with the receivers, right? Mike, JSN, I think we would all universally agree, had the best season at the receiver position. Now, maybe there's some people out there wanting to, put Jamar Chase in the mix, but I think if there was a tiebreaker, it would be because JSN's winning, their team's winning games, right? So it's meant more to the team. So you got the best receiver in football, in my opinion, this year at least. Right? I'm not saying he's always going to be the best receiver, but this year. And, Mike, one of the crazy parts is if you think about the receivers that have gotten their team to the Super Bowl, the elite ones, the really the last one that really comes to mind with the opportunity to win would have been like Randy Moss. Now, that's what the Patriots in 2007, that's like, you had Julio Jones. I mean, I'm not saying they haven't been there, right? But, Mike, the difference there with those players is basically they all still had a quarterback, which we assumed or knew is a very good quarterback. So that quarterback's going to be just as much the reason why they're there. It's not like, hey, this Mike with it's just so interesting with Darnold and he's had an inconsistent season. He's had a very good season, but he hasn't on his stats haven't always been consistent. You think to the Rams game with all those picks. And I think there's a narrative that if JSN has a great Super Bowl and they win this, you could argue obviously the defense is really involved and they're a very good defense. But this is the first receiver that like potentially carried an offense to a title, which to me was I'm always looking for that, game-changing narrative, and I feel like this would be a first that I can recall. Now, maybe I missed one out here, right? I'm not going to tell you that it's not possible, but as far as a wide receiver being the offensive, central point, difference maker, and winning the Super Bowl with, potentially not the greatest quarterback or, what will be a Hall of Fame quarterback. I know there's some caveats in there to get to that point, but I guess that's my point.
Well, we gloss over one that I can give you a pretty good example of, and relatively recently, and the guy's going to play in this fucking game too. He's just on the other side of JSN. Cooper Kupp, the year the Rams won it, 2021. That season he went on, Matt Stafford was a big part of it, but
sure.
Like to your original point about it, we definitely didn't look at Matt Stafford at the time like we look still now at Sam Darnold, right? Like Matt Stafford was respected.
That was there you go. That was going to be my point. Is Matt Stafford, at least for me, even then, Mike, he was a phenomenal quarterback. I think most people would agree that you may have your tier. You may not put him as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, but he was definitely you remember what the other thing, Mike, was you remember what they paid to go get Stafford. So the narrative was that he was the reason, right?
In modern times.
Although I will give you credit that I didn't mean to dismiss it, but I did overlook that a little bit. But I guess I was thinking more to the quarterback point. You're right.
So wide receivers, and I'm just looking at final game, at the end of the game, wide receivers that were Super Bowl MVPs, which is kind of a long shot anyways to get.
Sure. I was going to get to that point later. How is there the dark horse candidates for MVP and Super Bowl? Yeah.
But Cooper Kupp, Julian Edelman, back to your point, he's playing with Tom Brady for fuck's sake.
Hey, if you guys have ever seen Edelnut, that's what Randy Moss called him.
Edelnut.
Edelnut.
And then we got Santonio Holmes, Big Ben.
Well, again, Big Ben, a great quarterback. But I will say, don't throw too much shade at Santonio Holmes. He was a damn good receiver.
Hines Ward, another Pittsburgh Steeler.
He was a damn good receiver, but yeah.
Desmond Howard, and he got that one on the back of returning.
I was about to say that. Listen, Mike, I was at that point in my life, oddly, in this Patriots fandom, and I will tell you that he was unbelievable as a returner in that game. I mean, I still to this day can't recall a returner having more of an impact on a game of that magnitude ever, and it was insane.
Right. And then Jerry Rice in '88. I'm trying to keep it somewhat modern.
So 88 is the year, Mike, that I was born. So that's why I think it's a good point that you made that Jerry Rice. And I won't tell you the GOAT Jerry Rice wasn't a part of them. But even he had,
Joe Montana.
GOAT argument conversations in 2 different quarterbacks he played for. So
Yep. It's a tough sell, right? But let's live in a world where this actually does happen, though.
Okay.
Because this is kind of a rarity for a wide receiver of this caliber.
It's definitely a rarity because the teams typically don't go as the individual skill players have only, right?
No.
They could have great success, but as the team is normally carried by the quarterback, especially, or the defense is great.
I mean, we know what happened to the Falcons, 28-3. But still, like you said, Matt Ryan was his quarterback, and Matt Ryan, I think, was he MVP that year?
Matt Ryan had and listen, this is nothing to take away from Julio. He was also amazing that year, but Matt Ryan was freaking unreal that year.
But I'm thinking of wide receivers that have carried their teams to the big game. Now, may not have won it. T.O. with the Eagles. Donovan McNabb was his quarterback.
There you go. But even, what's so crazy about that? Obviously, the off-the-field antics that we get from McNabb and that you hear about. But
yeah, I'll never forgive him, but...
hey, listen, you can't go back in time. But, Mike, even McNabb wasn't thought of as some – I think what's so polarizing about this is Sam Darnold was just, Mike, and we can get to the point that I was going to have this carry over into, is the GM for the Vikings getting fired. Nobody saw, Mike, all offseason in Dynasty, I will tell you, there was a part of me that wished I took a little more Jalen Milroe after some of the drafts. And – from the process standpoint, I could see it. But, Mike, all the narrative, all offseason, from everywhere, talking heads, people that don't just play fantasy football, that Sam Darnold's going to have a tough time going to the Seattle team that's kind of going into a rebuild.
Right.
I mean,
how much for that, huh?
The point is, people still today won't give him any credit. So JSN is in a rare situation already, being this good of a receiver on this type of a team in the Super Bowl. He has the opportunity, in my opinion, Mike, to win. Think about how many quarterbacks that we don't think highly of that have even won a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I think there's I guess I was going to ask, is there a case for Seahawks winning? Obviously, that's step one for JSN being Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm just saying that's what's in front of us here.
So what's that got to look like? I mean, let's just think this one through. For JSN to win the MVP of the Super Bowl, like 7 for 150 and 2 touchdowns, and Sam Darnold throws total, 225 yards, and a couple touchdowns. And it's a defensive struggle for the most part, but JSN's the one who makes those big plays down the field, or like those game changers, like, oh shit, they just took the lead on JSN's touchdown in the fourth quarter.
Mm-hmm.
He broke a tackle, or, he got deep, or whatever he did.
I think so. It's interesting you brought that up as a theoretical, because that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, was if you had any dark horses for either team on,
Ooh, here's one. I give you
MVP.
one wide receiver.
Sure.
On the back to didn't win it, should have won it. Clearly the best player on his team. Quarterback at one time was regarded very highly, but this is on a rebound, and we never really saw him afterwards. Larry Fitzgerald with the Cardinals when they lost to the Santonio Holmes Steelers.
Yeah, Kurt Warner. Right.
Kurt Warner was cast off at that point. Remember, he went to the Giants. And we forget about Kurt Warner. The Giants was
I will say, though, Kurt Warner.
Was booty cheeks.
But he different than, I don't want to put him in the Manning category, because Manning got cast off because of injury. I'm not telling you that. But, we saw him also kind of revitalize his career in Arizona, too. And this is a guy that, when you think about the short window. Right. But, I mean, part of the reason they got there was Kurt Warner did play very well.
But is there a corollary here, right? Sam Darnold been cast aside.
But here's the difference.
JSN's revitalizing it like
but here's
Larry
the difference.
Fitzgerald.
Kurt Warner was the greatest show on turf's quarterback. Sam Darnold was the greatest show on get him out of here's quarterback. Like, it's just very interesting from the standpoint, Mike, that not that we can't see and tell you that there's good receiver seasons don't correlate possibly to good team success, but it's not normally the driver. And I think there's a opportunity when you talk about the MVP. To me, Mike, if the stats are where JSN has a good game, not even a great game, I'm saying and by the way, for him, that's a great game for most because basically it's 100 yards penciled in. If he gets to 100 yards and a touchdown, Mike, I think almost irregardless. So outside of like Sam Darnold carrying things like 304, they're going to default to JSN. This has been him doing this so long, so consistently all year. I think in that scenario, if there's even a conversation of who gets it, it's going to go to JSN. So, but I don't even think he has to win the MVP of the Super Bowl to necessarily solidify this. But it's just something that kind of dawned on me last week, and I felt like it was a good talking point. And the reason I was going to just, again, I don't think it necessarily has to correlate, but I do think it plays a little bit of a factor in how much the receiver position in Dynasty is very much coveted, right? So if you have JSN go in and get the Super Bowl MVP and have a very good game and they win this, Mike, think about what JSN's career started like, and think about how many more kind of stories the Dynasty manager can kind of grasp to, right, and gravitate towards as, man, JSN didn't have the greatest start at all, and look at him now. We got to go get these young receivers that might have some, I think, bounce back opportunity and value over the next few months.
I like that. Just a couple bows on this. Larry Fitzgerald, by far the best example I could give you.
And he's one of the best receivers ever to play the game, for sure.
Ever to play the game. And if Santonio Holmes, who won the Super Bowl MVP that year, doesn't make that catch, that toe drag swag on the
I hate the
corner
Steelers, okay? I hate him with a passion, but that catch was legit.
If he doesn't, I would argue that Larry Fitzgerald wins Super Bowl MVP. 7 for 127 and 2 with a long of 64 yards. You remember that crosser over the middle he housed?
Yeah. Dude,
Santonio Holmes
he was a beast
MVP
in that game. Larry Fitzgerald was.
Santonio Holmes won the MVP, 9 for 134 in that game-winning touchdown. Meanwhile, his quarterback, Ben Roethlisberger, was pretty pedestrian. Sub-50 QBR in that game. 21 to 30, 256, 1 touchdown, 1 interception.
They Corey, you know how much I love you, but you know how much I hate this comment, right? I need you to know that it's hated. But no, Mike, I remember I was in college that year, so you're going big for the game and you're watching, but that was honestly, as far as Ben's tenure, I think one of the them winning that game is crazy still to me. They did not have at all their best outing, and wild that they were able to overcome that.
Remember they got that touchdown right before halftime. James Harrison, 98-yard pick
that was
six.
what I was gonna say. It was like, Mike, a lot of times. So in basketball, for example, playing it as long as I did in the higher levels, like varsity and in college, I basically, you could look at a stat sheet, right? And you could, obviously I would be playing in these, but you could determine and see how a lot of the stats would correlate to why things happened, right? And when you have games like that where your quarterback, you win and you put up a lot of points or a fair number of points, and you're like, there has to be some crazy things that take place, right? Like in basketball, let's say if you have a really horrible shot percentage and you win, you're like, well, they had to have just absolutely manhandled them on the glass. Like something has to go that correlate to that. So to your point, you have to get some crazy, unreal touchdown that almost has like a less than 1% chance of happening, like a 0.1% chance of happening probably.
Right. I wonder, listen, we're not super heavy bettors like some of our D-gens in the Discord, We're getting locks of the week.
By the way, a few years ago, I would consider myself in that camp. Mike, at this point in my life, I don't have the disposable income to just be betting that D-gen level anymore. All
right. So Super Bowl MVP odds as they stand as of today.
That's what... Oh, Mike, I'm glad you pulled it up because I was preparing to have to pull it up, and I didn't get to it before the show, so this is great.
Sam Darnold, plus 115, favorite. Wow. That's where we're at, bud.
Well, let's put the kid up.
Let's put him up. Put him up.
Well, here's the thing, Mike. Remember what I just said about JSN?
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't surprise me. Vegas loves the favorite to be someone that they don't necessarily think is, their favorite to win.
Their favorite. Yep.
But I mean, it makes sense, right? It just makes sense that if the quarterback, and the thing about Seattle, while their defense is good, Mike, this is one of the points I want to get into with the Patriots here too. But let's get to the Super Bowl odds too, or I'm sorry, MVP odds. The Seahawks, while their defense is good, they have put up a lot of points. So typically, a quarterback that puts up a lot of points and has a good day is going to be one of the best, if not the best, candidate to win the MVP.
Right. Drake May plus 240. Second.
That's
JSN.
kind of crazy to think about the difference in odds, and that speaks to how much people think that the Patriots aren't going to win. Wow.
And for you at home who are not really familiar with odds, at plus 115, if you bet $10 on Sam Darnold, you'd win $21.50 total. All right. If you bet Drake May plus 240, if you bet $10, you win $34. So there's your difference. Same bet, win 13 more bucks.
When we move on from the QBs, what's the next?
JSN.
Okay,
JSN's
and what does that look
favorite
like?
of plus 550. Bet 10 to win 65.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. That worries me because, Mike, while those odds are very nice in my opinion, I was just thinking about saying, man, you gotta sprinkle something on that. How do I want to put this? You got 2 weeks of Vrabel that might decide just, listen, we want anyone else.
He ain't beating us.
Right. And the problem is that in my opinion, for the skill player, while I like JSN as a very heavy favorite to win MVP if the Seahawks win, Mike, it's like, I don't know if those odds are long enough to be betting a skill player. Deion Branch, obviously not the same player, but the odds are going to be so much more in your favor to win a better payout as we go on from JSN here.
Plus 800 to Kenneth Walker.
So, Mike, that's an interesting one. I was expecting it to be a little longer. Obviously, Charbonnet not being there makes this where you have the odds had to change in the favor of Kenneth. And let me ask you this question. What do you think of that? I was going to bring that up as, I think a very realistic outcome in the event that maybe they get up early and, they decide to lean on the run a little here.
Yeah, and we watched him in that San Francisco game carry him. Right?
He has the ability. When healthy, you had a full week off. Yep. When he's healthy, he has the ability to carry a football team.
Because he's so damn explosive, and he can put up yards and touchdowns in bunches. So, plus 800 is enough to dabble, right?
Yeah,
dabble in it. Ramondre plus 2,800. Adam.
Well, Mike, here you go
with the Rhino
right on cue here, and I got him with the goofiest grin that I could possibly get him on, because this feels like how he feels about all the fantasy managers and the dynasty managers watching that game. Mike, and here's what I wanted to say. It's funny you brought him up, and that was just the way this is the perfect pivot to the discussion here for New England. I think you brought up how Drake May really wasn't the reason that they won that game, right? And even before the snow really started coming down, the numbers weren't the greatest. To me, watching that game, the snow ended up being a big ceiling factor because you couldn't do shit, right, at that point. It was, especially for Jarrett Stidham and that type of an offense, you're not. But, Mike, to me, what I'm watching, number one, the Rhinos playing, I haven't looked at the snap share, and I almost don't want to, but I think I have to now.
They got 2 carries last game.
He had 3 carries. I had him on a prop bet. But, Mike, I'll tell you, the 3 carries that he got, I remember vividly those being the 3 plays that I saw him out there. And I'm thinking, the snap share for Rhino out there, one is just, it's an interesting point. But we've seen Vrabel and this team in general use Rhino more than I think any of us would have liked to. But I think it really drives home the big point of this is that Vrabel went into this game as conservative as humanly possible, saying, we're going to win this old school and we're going to put Drake May in no positions to turn it over. And we don't want, I don't know that this really makes sense. I think there's just a rookie narrative sometimes that goes into this, but Travion Henderson being on the field, while I think everyone would admit more upside, somehow he views it as, riskier. And to me, the entire game plan from New England is kind of not really a real thing to look at going into the Super Bowl, because there's no way you could pretend to be that conservative after 2 weeks, going into the game and, on the West Coast like this. But I don't know if that was what you saw. To me, I just saw a incredibly, ridiculously conservative game plan from him.
Yeah, and then there's been some playoff film breakdown of Trevion that I saw floating out there on Twitter, and
Hmm.
it was not a pretty picture too. His vision seems to
Okay,
be lacking. Like
interesting.
he's been running into a couple blocks. There's been some cutback lanes that he chooses to actually run into the one spot where there's a defender. So it could just be a rookie thing, rookie jitters, and fuck, these are the biggest games I've played in my career up to this point, and he's trying to figure it out. But the Rhino, to his credit, has it seems hot takey to say, but he's far outplayed Trevion in the playoffs here and down the stretch of the regular season. The Rhino's been like, damn, this dude's still kicking. He's still got it. He's looked explosive. He's looked good. He's running hard. Plus 2,800, Adam. I might throw $10 on that. Why not? $5. I give you some other like massive odd ones that I think are hilarious. You talked about Trevion. Plus 12,500.
Well, dude, here's the thing, right? I will say, actually, Mike, that's probably not long enough odds. However, thinking of the Patriot way, if you will, is there a team out there that you could think of that's more of a, you could see the entire thing change where maybe they don't even go into it as a game plan, but Trev has a big carry and they give him, all of a sudden the kid gets 12 touches. And if you've seen him play at any capacity, 12 touches gives him 12 chances to make
Score
a crazy
touchdown.
play, make a crazy play happen, right? So,
Yeah.
I will just say this: I haven't really seen any of the film breakdowns, and I'm not telling you he has not missed a ton of reads or has not missed reads at points, but Mike, since week 8, right, Trayvon Henderson has had a very, very appetizing and good yards per carry across those weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And basically has been if you give him 15 touches, has been a shoo-in to get nearly 100 yards and a touchdown. And I think the crazy part is this is why I think at least specifically this game, maybe I'm not saying that you're not right. I agree. There's probably reasons why Vrabel doesn't trust him as much, whether it's not hitting the hole right or doing what he wants him to do. But Mike, it's like you play him that little if you're trying to go super conservative, because if you need upside, you're going to put him in even if he's going to make bonehead plays, because he's the one that's going to take a potential run to the house. We've all seen. So
I know in their first playoff game too, he missed a couple big blocks in pass protection, which was supposed to be his calling card.
That was definitely, in my opinion, part of the big gig, right? Because he's one of the best pass blockers, I think, from a technical sound standpoint. But Mike, the other thing about it is rookies do have the potential and tendency to make bonehead mental errors. So I think that could probably be what it comes from too. Is what I'm saying with both Drake May and Trev out there is you got really young players, and basically Vrabel doesn't want to have any opportunity to have one bonehead play. You talk about the Arizona game where you've outplayed a team, and all of a sudden now you're in the hole because there's a crazy pick six or a fumble or strip sack because you didn't pick up a block.
Yeah. So here we are. This is not. I don't know what the hell happened. I don't know what the hell happened to him, but you're looking at week 18, obviously 42% snaps, 37 first playoff game, 39 second, and then 6.6 this last week. That's the last time they played. This is wild. I give you two more long shot odds here, and I can't find the odds on this guy. So if you can find it on a sports book somewhere,
okay.
I bet the second one. But the first one, plus 10,000 to DeMarcus Lawrence,
Wow.
Seahawks defensive lineman. I think I would sprinkle some money on that, especially with the way the Patriots have struggled here in pass protection as of late. We saw that in their last game. Drake May's taken a ton of sacks, and DeMarcus Lawrence has really come on strong for this defense. And Corey Mercer put it in there. Defensive players won Super Bowl MVP 10 out of 59 times. Feels like a decent bet at plus. And that's just bet defensive player. And I'll give you another defensive player that I would like in a defensive struggle. What about Christian Gonzalez? What about the opportunity to get a pick or two on Sam Darnold and go down as
I was actually just trying
Super Bowl MVP?
It's funny you were talking pass rushers, and I was thinking I know there have definitely been a handful of. When I say handful, though, it's happened, but it's still a smaller percentage. But Mike, I wasn't sure if it was 10, right? So what I was thinking is, I would imagine a lot of them are probably pass rushers, but I'm actually trying to go back and think, Mike. I know what's his name for New England. Speaking of, wasn't it in the rematch of this game or the prior game that what's his name won the MVP? The corner? Oh, you're muted.
My bad. So the last one that we had, Von Miller with the Broncos, Cam
Sure.
Newton's,
Cam Newton didn't jump on the ball.
Cam Newton talking shit about all these quarterbacks in the Super Bowl, Drake May and Sam Darnold, and yet we have game film of what Cam actually did in the Super Bowl.
Sure. by the way, I will say, while you're not wrong, in my opinion, still to this point in my life, the most impressive season that I've seen a quarterback put together, though.
Malcolm Smith was the one you were thinking of.
Yeah, Malcolm Smith, yes. Which is crazy.
No.
Was it not?
Nope, my bad. Malcolm Smith was the middle linebacker for the Seahawks when they won it in 2013.
What was it?
Tom Brady won it in that pick at the goal line.
In the pick game? Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Who that's interesting. For some reason, because the only thing I could remember was him going to Disney, but I guess that's the whole team kind of goes. So
the whole team goes to Disney. Before that, Dexter Jackson of Tampa Bay Bucks.
Well, then I was going to say, if it wasn't him, how many DBs have won it, though? To me, that's like a
Dexter Jackson, free safety.
That's it.
And Larry Brown, Dallas Cowboys. Remember that?
Yes, but come on. I guess what I'm saying is I love Christian Gonzalez, but my guess is the amount of times he'll probably get thrown at, even though it's JSN, to where he makes a play is not going to necessarily be it's worth the sprinkle because of the odds, I think. What were the odds again on that?
I don't know what Christian Gonzalez is.
You couldn't even find odds on it? Got it.
Nope.
Yeah, I would probably stay away from defensive backs just because it's such a fucking it's so hard for the opportunities they have to make plays that can, impact it. The one thing about defensive players too is it doesn't have to just be a defensive struggle, right? Like Mike, if you're telling me the game is a very close decided game and someone's played well and they make a crucial play to either make a turnover or especially a turnover that turns into a score, that now is looked at as the pivotal reason why a deciding factor in why a team wins, right?
Right. Out of the 10 defensive players who won MVP, 3 of them have been defensive backs.
There you go. So, it's happened 3 times, okay, in 60 years. So,
saying there's a chance.
There is a chance. Well, Mike, here's my question to you. Last thing. Obviously, you're saying there's a chance. And when I say this, the opposite tune of the typical line. You're saying there's a chance Sam Darnold is the Super Bowl MVP.
It sounds like there's a pretty good chance.
I mean, it's the best chance of all the chances, according to the betting odds and the who's betting in particular. So let me ask you this. Again, I know it's only been a week, and I know typically when I re-ask these questions after a week, I don't get any different answer. But with the firing of the GM specifically in Minnesota in the week of the prelude to the Super Bowl, do you think that – I guess I just want to re-ask the question. Do you think Minnesota has buyer's remorse or lack thereof for not, keeping Darnold around? I mean, I didn't expect them to get rid of him. I knew he should have been on the hot seat because of it, but I didn't think they were going to get rid of him this week.
Mm-hmm. Now, I would say shitty Minnesota fans might have a buyer's remorse or, seller's remorse, whatever you want to say.
Right, not returning, I'm sure.
But, I mean, what else? What the fuck were you going to do? Like, what were we going to do? The coach wanted J.J. McCarthy. The GM wanted J.J. McCarthy. The team wanted J.J. McCarthy to not even see the kid play a full season and then to go, we're going to give a big contract to Sam Darnold just based on this year, and you're fucked. Like, that's kind of shit that we make fun of, Shanahan and Lynch for with what they did with Trey Lance and then, replace him with Brock Purdy and this is how you roll. To give up on him after 1 year already without even seeing him play would have been some ludicrous shit that I don't think even Trey Lance didn't get that level of disrespect. We got to see Trey Lance in a game and a half before he fractured his ankle in his second year. Before they're like, oh, Brock stepped in and played so goddamn well, right? And even that following offseason, remember it was a quarterback battle between the two. I remember who was that? Grant Cohn. He's one of the beat writers that's pretty vocal on Twitter for the 49ers, was talking about the quarterback competition all offseason between Lance and Brock Purdy on who was going to win it. And you met at the wedding, Eric Armstead, and it was still up in the air at that point when you were having that wedding, talking with Big Eric about who the quarterback was going to be. You had a little insight, right? What the team was thinking.
Well, that was what was crazy about that was it to me, at least, Mike, one of my biggest takeaway was obviously, one, this guy plays for the team in the locker room. He knows, and I trust him. But, Mike, there was a lot of potential buzz, and I think it makes sense given that situation with Brock Purdy, right? But it's like, a lot of the people that, we watch football like crazy, and D-Gens I knew and people that were really into it, it was kind of a split field. It was like, hey, listen, the investment the team made is crazy. Some people are like, oh, you can't take Purdy, but it was nowhere near a consensus. The answer he gave me, Mike, I'll never forget it. I asked him, what about Purdy? And he one of the things he said was his escapability and making plays happen. And the team really seemed to rally around him. And when I asked him, I said, so what does that mean, and what do you think about with Trey? And I'll never forget, Mike, if you have a conversation, if you're socially, aware, there's a little bit of a lull, right, where someone doesn't pauses and answering a question. And while it could be 2 or 3 seconds, I mean, it speaks eternity of volumes. He had to think about how he wanted to phrase it. And I was like, damn, that's crazy, just in that time. And he said, I think he had his opportunity. And I'm like, just think about that for a second. This is a guy that played a game and a half. He said, I think he had his opportunity. To me, that meant that, in my opinion, again, that there was a lot of things in the way that he probably led or lack thereof, or the way he conducted himself, that made the locker room feel like, listen, we need to move on. But that was crazy to me. The answer was insane that he said that. And I remember still the worst part of this, Mike, is I didn't change any of my transactions in Dynasty around that, and unfortunately I had more Lance than I had Purdy, and it burned me. But with Darnold, I think the thing is, Mike, I wanted to hear for this one here, because when you go into it, obviously this is hindsight. You can't go back and pretend that you can make the decision with all this information in the year prior. But now, I mean, it seemed like not retaining Darnold in any capacity, or trying to at least. Obviously, to your point, $33 million a year for 3 years maybe was going to be beyond what they could have tried to figure out a way to do. But not trying to keep him potentially on a 1-year prove-it deal, right? Well, I mean, just from the standpoint of that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. What did you want to say?
They did. They made that contract offer to him, a 1-year prove-it deal, which he turned down. Like that, his camp was like, no, we have a 3-year deal from the Seahawks on the table, and that's what we're going to take. Because they did offer him one with $37.5 million guaranteed, but it was only a 1-year deal.
Sure.
Right? Like, you could see why Donald would reject that. Also, when they made that offer, it's like, listen, we don't want to offer you 3 years because we don't want to be tied to you for 3 years, because we still want to develop J.J. McCarthy and see what we have here. Like, we haven't got to see him play, really, outside of preseason games.
The crazy thing, though, at least to me, is where, again, this is to where I think sometimes what we hear, there's more to the story. For example, like why I say that I think they could have tried a little harder than they probably did. He was only guaranteed at signing 37.5, and he was only guaranteed over that contract 55. So, to me, there was a barrier basically that says we weren't willing to give him whatever it would be an opt-out I think they could have if they really worked on it. I think what was also being said, since they let Darnold walk and that they didn't have they brought in what they did, it felt like to me, Mike, was they tried to make it as easy as possible for J.J. McCarthy to feel like there was no one of, like, we believe in you. That's what they were trying to signal to him, but it left nothing as far as Brosmer was their backup, right? So now, and I guess, with this question kind of, I want to hear more of your thoughts on it, but it's interesting now. You think about the situation that they're in, where all that you're hearing is that they need to do something to bring in a potential good backup to at least push J.J. McCarthy to get the best version of himself, or if there's another injury or something happens to J.J. McCarthy, you can't be in the situation with Brosmer again. So I don't know if that's not really a pointed question. I was just I want to hear more of your thoughts on it.
No, I would say that's the valid point, is they didn't have a real backup plan. Listen, we can't offer Sam what he's going to want to stay here. We don't want to offer Sam a multi-year deal because we want to focus on developing J.J. McCarthy. But to your point, they didn't have a good backup plan of, listen, we got a proven vet. We got somebody we can go to in a pinch, which is also why I think they probably made a run at Daniel Jones.
Right, and they didn't
give him an offer, and they didn't get Jones either. They weren't willing to offer enough to keep Daniel Jones on the roster, which they had him at the end of the season, as in a backup role.
Right.
I'll say this, and I bring it up all the time. Like, we're looking through hindsight with Sam Darnold now playing in the Super Bowl.
Of course, this is a hindsight. Yeah, agreed.
But in the moment, what you'd saw was 2 piss poor games. One to cost him the division, 2 to lose him first round of the fucking playoffs. You know, that shit's on Sam Darnold. He was back to seeing ghosts again, and that's what they're coming off of. We've seen teams who've had more success with quarterbacks who played better, who gave that quarterback a long-term contract and then immediately regretted it the following year. You know what I mean? Like that is turned around. Because what if they'd done something like that? What if they had locked in Sam Darnold for 3 years, 4 years to a Geno Smith Seahawks level deal, or Geno Smith Raiders level deal,
Sure.
or a Daniel Jones when he was on the Giants level deal, which Daniel Jones played better than Darnold that season and played better in the playoffs that season. They gave him this long-term deal, like this long-term one, and then instantly regretted. Holy shit, I can't believe we played Daniel Jones this much. But what if they'd done something like that and had a first-round quarterback on their roster that they hadn't seen? Like, what a clusterfuck of a situation they would be in if Sam Darnold didn't play well this year for the Minnesota Vikings and they'd locked him up for a long-term deal.
Well, I think that's where I guess I look at it differently from the standpoint of this, right? Let's just say, because we all know they weren't going to give him the exact contract Seattle gave him, right? But let's just say, let's live in a world they did. Like, if he played poorly or at some point throughout the year, in that scenario, you probably have Sam Darnold start the season, obviously, right? And then you're looking for the opportunity to get JJ in as he continues to get more reps in practice, and you know, if Sam Darnold opens the window. So, Mike, but here's the thing. Then you have the opportunity of J.J. McCarthy's learned from a vet that has shown at times at least success in the system, right? And you pass the keys. And now they have an opt-out after this year. So it's like, all right, Sam Darnold's our backup, an expensive one for this coming up year, and you know you're going to get rid of him. And Mike, you could, of this $100 million, you'd save 45. You only were guaranteed 55. Now, I'm not saying that's not a large number, but relative to the cap, it's not that crazy when you have a rookie quarterback. Because in the inverse situation, right, Mike, basically you could say there, all right, we thought Sam Darnold showed signs enough to give him an opportunity, and he didn't prove it, and now it's JJ's team. And nobody can say shit about that because Sam Darnold had a chance on the field to prove you that he was not the guy. There's not really like an ass in, like you're holding your fucking cock or ass in that scenario where it's so bad. This one's like, okay, if JJ doesn't pan out, we don't have anything, right? And so I'll just say this too: the Darnold thing. If it wasn't Darnold, because let's just live in the world where they really tried their best to make a deal that was going to be working and they couldn't. To your point, they missed out on Jones. I think all these young quarterbacks, one of the things they really need, in my opinion, or at least benefit from significantly. I don't want to maybe put it as a holistic need. But I think when they have no backups out there that understand the game in any capacity, that aren't very good backups, I think there's a learning curve to the quarterback position that's very steep, we all know. And having those guys around is such a big deal. Not that Kevin O'Connell isn't a quarterback whisperer, but I think having the people on the field that can show you and help you through that stuff is tremendously honestly, personally, for me, underrated in the game.
One other thing I'll bring up, because we don't focus on it enough from, how we approach football sometimes too, is the financials. Like the financials of it, right?
Yeah, sure.
Like I don't know, they obviously got below the salary cap for last year, right? Like you can't fucking field, you can't have a team if you're above there's penalties, major ones. Like you have to be below the cap.
It's not the NBA. There's no luxury tax. You have to get under, for sure.
I don't know how a long-term Sam Darnold contract would have affected that. I also don't know how last year, let's say they did give him $37.5 million or whatever the hell it was, what that would have counted against the cap. Because we got to remember, too, that also means that there's certain people who are on the Minnesota Vikings helping them to whatever wins they got this year that probably wouldn't have been there if you had kept Sam Darnold around. You know what I mean? Like they wouldn't have been able to afford him because right now, sitting here, they're $40 million over the projected cap heading into this season with all this shit on their books. And they got to do some financial savvy stuff and some cap wizard shit, right, to kind of get themselves back right where they can actually sign rookies even.
Yeah, well, I mean,
draft class.
What eventually, I mean, to me, I hear you. I will say, at least this is my opinion on this. One, we are seeing, and the Eagles actually are the specific cheat code point to the way that they're running everything. Now, granted, Howie, to your point of wizardry, feels about as Harry Potterish as it gets. Okay, so let's admit that. But the craft of the way in which the contract is structured and pushing the money out and making it not have to. You constantly see teams kind of get around restructuring deals to get into the cap in year in and year out, especially when they're in a Minnesota situation where you're kind of a team that's constantly been in a playoff contending window, right? I think, Mike, here's my biggest pushback or issue to that. Not that it isn't valid. To me, if you're not talking about a quarterback especially, fine. What you can't, in my opinion, it's more fiscally irresponsible to not do that at the quarterback position if you don't have a secure quarterback, right? To me, the whole thing we already know, it pretty much pivots at this position. So if you're telling me this is almost name any other position, probably it's going to be quarterback, left tackle, elite pass rusher, and on a short list, right? But like outside of like those scenarios, I think it's more of a hey, we do what we need to in the short term to figure this out, because at least, again, this is just you don't know. You can't go back and know what's in the building, and there's a lot of hindsight bias as well. But it definitely feels like when you look at it with hindsight bias, agreed, man, it's like the backup plan. It's like you went it without having a plan B. It's like we only have a lot of people you see do this, right? And like whatever, they're going for their dream. I don't have a plan B. Well, you got a baby too when you got no plan B, right? Like we got knocked up. This plan, not having a backup plan, feels like the worst case scenario that the Vikings could be in right now.
And that was too. And we're gonna point to the GM who got fired, draft record pretty horribly. The Sam Darnold thing will be on there too. But
it was another part of it. That's the other thing. He had other blunders, right? For sure.
Another factor could be his cap management and how good he is, right?
And the one of the things, he does it, for sure. 100%.
One of the things about Howie, for like the more nerdy people who get into the financials of it, that he does is Howie keeps a perfect timeline of when he's going to void years, when he's going to be able to restructure.
The void years is the biggest thing. His void years is wizardry.
So some of these guys, and I would imagine, like it's like any other workplace that you're going to be at. There's some people who are CEOs of companies that run them fantastically, and there's other CEOs who are fucking dog shit and don't know what the hell they're doing, and they got here by sheer luck or whatever the case may be. Some of these guys don't keep track of their void years and when they're coming due, and have a good timeline and a 4 or a 5 year plan as far as contract structuring goes. Where like, hey, in 2026, I know we're going to be right up against the cap, but I have these 8 guys that I could do some financial wizardry with as far as restructuring their deals. Some of these teams, like New Orleans, which we saw over the last couple of years, the debt finally came due, right? There was only so long they could keep pushing out that contender window and keep extending those in void years and doing their financial wizardry with restructuring before all of a sudden it's like, you got to go, you're cut, you're traded, get out. Like we just can't keep you. We don't have any money. We're going to be dog shit for the next couple of years. Maybe this guy kind of already had him up against the fucking wall where it's like, there's literally nothing we can do financially.
Yeah, he didn't give him a lot of wiggle room as to making, you would have had to make, if you don't give him a lot of wiggle room, you have to make bigger and more rash decisions in the short term to make it work. I could see that.
Just right now, looking at him on for 2026, right? Justin Jefferson's costing $39 million against the cap. Jonathan Allen on the defensive line, 24 mil. Brian O'Neill on the offensive line, 23. Darisaw, 22. Grenard, 22. Hargrave, 21. TJ Hawkinson, 21. Byron Murphy, 20. Andrew Van Ginkel, 20. Those are a lot of big fucking numbers for very important players to their team. So even if he could have figured out some way to avoid year or 1 year prove it deal or whatever the fuck he was going to do, I don't know how 2025 would have worked out financially for him. I do know in 2026, like they're in a shitty spot. Like we think about how good Howie is at the cap, right? And Howie's got all his great players and he's locked them up or whatever. You look at the Eagles with Howie got him in right now. He's got $21 million in cap space before he makes any kind of financial wizardry moves. Whoever takes over this Vikings team now, the new GM, is going to look at this and go, we're $40 million in the red. We're 40. Like I got to go to Justin Jefferson and be like, hey, here's the thing. We're fucked. I need some money back somehow. All right. Like, I'm going to have to void some years or something like that. You know, I'll give you a signing bonus now or whatever the fuck he's going to do. Like, those are tough conversations to have with very fucking important players. And it's not like they have a whole lot of guys that I listed off there where you're like, that dude's expendable. You know, like, either take the restructure, get the fuck off the team. Like, that's where he's going to have to start. So I don't know how this whole Sam Darnold contract thing, it could just be a fugazi. We could be looking at it from the outside in without really understanding the financials and be like, it was a fucking pipe dream for them to ever actually sign Sam Darnold or offer him a competitive contract that he would have accepted.
Yeah, I think, well, at the time that may be the way the narrative was going. I think at this point we can confidently feel, this is one of the things I just wanted to say, right? I think it's interesting. This is definitely the case in Dynasty, right? We know this in play. When the community overarchingly in majority rules a player is done, like that carries a significant weight. You see the dynasty value dip, and you see the community have no choice but to kind of react in a panicked way, right? So when you get to that point where it's over, like for a guy like Marv who's been chosen, right? You see he's on going into this next year is a little bit undecided, but his value is still high. But when you get to that point where like the community as a whole writes somebody off, you feel it. And it feels like, to me at least, going into this offseason, that's what the community did with Sam Darnold in a weird way, because Mike is like, obviously they had success, but it was the way he went out, right? His last two games were definitely not, I mean, we can all agree, they were horrible, and they were not his best reflection. But Mike, it's really crazy when you think about this, when I was just going over some of this. Obviously a massive team game, and I don't want to tell you that the Seattle team is not a good and great football team. On the defensive side of the ball, they don't have other skill players. But Mike, Sam Darnold now has put together 2 seasons in a row of 14-3. That for those that wonder, the Legion of Boom, they called it. The Legion of Boom in their best season was 13-3. I mean,
yeah.
Now you could say like, you know, all right, you could point to other quarterbacks that had 1-year wonder successes. I think probably the difference for most of those is going to be that Sam Darnold had talent that most of those guys didn't or weren't truly considered as having. But, Mike, to prove it at a new team that, you know, since Russ and this Legion of Boom has kind of been – it's been good. It's a great run organization, you can tell. But the best season they've had 2 years in a row, and now they're in the Super Bowl. My rhetorical question, or not that you can't answer it, but – how disrespected can a guy be at this point? I mean, I'm trying to think legitimately, Mike, forget Darnold and forget guys that we don't think of as hot. How many quarterbacks have put together 2 seasons in a row, even with 13 wins? Let's go back to the days, because not that many seasons have been played with 17 games. How many 13 wins in a row have been done for a quarterback, period? How great are those quarterback lists? And I can almost guarantee none of them are in 2 different teams in a row.
Yeah.
That's a crazy stat.
I don't think any of them are going to come to 2 different teams, right? Like 2 different teams in a row, right?
Because most people aren't going to let a 13-win quarterback go out the window.
They're usually not. It's also this weird dynamic of a question, right? You want to look at him and say, is he disrespected from the dynasty perspective? And rightfully so for us.
Right. They're different questions. Agreed.
Yeah, we've seen better quarterback dynasty fantasy point numbers from QBs, and they've never really rebounded. Like Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield have given us, in recent memory, pretty goddamn good seasons as far as fantasy points scored. Sure. And they always seem to plateau right at that, 15, 16 range, because we've seen them fail in the past and we don't like them anymore, right?
Yeah, right. Well, they don't have the I'll just coin it as, you know, the new shiny car feeling, right? The quarterback Correct. That's come in and not showing you any errors.
Correct. Sam Darnold's an interesting one because last year he gave you a hell of a fantasy season.
Right.
This year he gave you a god-awful fantasy season, yet his team won. His team won a lot of games.
Replaceable. I don't even know if you could put him in the replaceable camp. You probably put him as below replaceable.
Listen, his WAR for the season
level is what I meant, sorry.
His WAR for the season's only a couple spots ahead of Justin Fields. So let that one sink in.
I mean, but you know what the crazy part is? The quarterback field was so bad that it might be like not negligible how much it actually cost you. I'm not saying he did well. I agree with you though.
Right. He was just barely above like Aaron Rodgers. Think about how much he meant to your fantasy success this season.
Which, you know what's crazy, Mike? The amount I actually saw 4 teams in the finals with Aaron Rodgers. It was one of those years where I think the quarterback in general was down. But yeah, point taken.
I mean, you were better off having Bucky Irving on your team for the entire season.
I'm not arguing that Sam Darnold had a very great fantasy season. I'm saying the whole quarterback field was down.
No, it's just this interesting dynamic. Now, it seems in NFL circles, right? You see a lot of these talk shows. We had a question in there about talk shows. You see a lot of these podcasts with, NFL-focused ones. A lot of people, if they were to do quarterback rankings and lists with the success Sam Darnold's had this season and last season, they have him fairly high as far as like their quarterback ranks go. Now, for dynasty purposes, you
kind of have to, right? At this sitting point today, you kind of have to. No?
But it's always this weird dynamic because, listen, as dynasty players, we know what wins come from, right? This is the whole reason we have WARP, right? It's from fantasy points. Like, what do you do on stats? Like, sure. how good are your stats, right? That's how we look at the lens of quarterbacks and how we judge them. And there is some combination for on-field success and who the winners are and who the guys that are playing in Super Bowls are and who's Super Bowl MVP, that kind of stuff. But our primary focus is going to be stats. Secondary is going to be quarterback wins. If you flip it around to the NFL lens, it's almost like they don't really give a shit too much about the stats and they care more about the wins, which a lot of real NFL guys will say, and you've seen this on Twitter and social media and like former NFL players. Like it's usually not the quarterbacks who are saying it, right? So let's keep that. It's a wide receiver, it's a running back, it's a lineman, it's a defensive player. They're like, quarterback wins is overrated as fuck, right? Like that's, if you're going to judge quarterbacks just based on wins, that's overrated fuck. But it's the only thing we really have to judge quarterbacks if you're looking at it from just a pure NFL standpoint.
I was going to say though that
wins? Who gets Super Bowl rings?
That also, right? You have to take in. You kind of already alluded to this, but you have to take in the source. Like, well, I understand it from that source, but when you take a look, here's the reason I say that, right? You definitely do have outliers for everything in life. But Mike, one of the things that's more typical to see is the correlation of that quarterback in the win column. It's like the most correlative probably of all of them, right? And the reason I say that is what's really interesting when you think about it from this point now. When I ask that question, is he a little disrespected from the standpoint of this? Like, the story tells you for both of these franchises, the year before Sam, not really the greatest, not terrible, right? I'm not saying these were dire stress franchises that are screwed, because we saw what that looked like in the early part of his career potentially with the Jets and with the Panthers, right? While he may be a different quarterback, that situation's out there. Like, this is a team that, at least until those last 2 games, had one of their regardless of those last 2 games, they had one of their best seasons for sure in their last 20 years or maybe franchise at all. He went out terribly, obviously. We know that situation. But, Mike, the Seahawks, again, think about this. The Seahawks we saw how much of an improvement he made there, but then it was more felt this year for the Vikings. Although they finished at 9-8, it was more felt for the Vikings, I think, this year than ever for a Viking fan. Honestly, it felt that way. Now, maybe it's not the reality, but it felt like for them, they were in, especially in like midway through the season, in clusterfuck hell, right? Like you felt like, dude, this does not feel good. The offense doesn't look good. It looks inconsistent. Justin Jefferson's not happy, and we don't really feel that confident about winning games a lot of times. So the out and in narrative is I get it. It's 2 seasons. It's only 2 seasons, but 14 wins speaks a lot, especially now that he's in the Super Bowl.
It does. It's just an interesting point when that's how we're judging NFL quarterbacks. It's primarily on wins and Super Bowl rings. Like you said, we do have outliers. I don't think there's anybody out there that's going to be like, well, Dan Marino was a terrible quarterback because he never won a Super Bowl, right?
Sure.
Like, no, right. Dan Marino is one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the fucking game, right? Like the best.
Well, Mike, by the way, I will say, let me just give you this caveat, because you do have fuckery, right? I mean, right now, I've been hearing from people I know and don't know, which means a lot of places, Mike, that is Lamar. Speaking of the timing here, the Cavs just acquired James Harden, which I almost had a coronary. Okay. What are we doing here? But Mike, is Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen just the James Harden of the NFL?
Oh, it could be.
My point, Mike, is that I guarantee there's people actually out there that are saying yes to that guy. He wasn't that good of a quarterback. He didn't win.
It's just weird to me because it's not a concrete one. We're not going to judge him.
Look at Jay. This is perfect. My heart was in my ass all season. Okay, that describes it better than I ever could.
Like quarterback wins is just such a weird way because we pick and choose when we want to apply it, and sometimes we'll apply it to some guys, and we'll like for example,
The
we're
situation
talking up
always is variable, right? You have to
we're
have some
talking up
balance.
Sam Darnold in multiple 13 win seasons with two different teams. Like this is awesome, Sam Darnold's really turned it around. This is why people have him at QB7 on their NFL quarterback ranks list or whatever the fuck it is. That's how we justify it. Then we discredit it for other quarterbacks. Like we pick and choose who we're going to do it for because some of it just doesn't fit the narrative. I remember vividly at one time, and we're talking within probably the last 5 years, one of the things people were talking about was fourth quarter comebacks at quarterbacks, and like how great this quarterback was because look how many fourth quarter comebacks he has. And yet Derek fucking Carr was like the career active leader in fourth quarter comebacks at that time, and nobody would apply that to Derek Carr as far as him being a good quarterback. They're like, we don't give a shit about that now.
I will say the timing of that, I actually vividly kind of remember, at least where that was more of a polarizing, popular conversation point. To me, I think that conversation became so polarizing and forced into existence. Not that it isn't a valid thing to talk about, but because Tom Brady was constantly winning. Like at that point, there was like this, the fact that we have to have another measurement because Brady's dominating so much the winning, right? So it's like, if you were a pro anybody that wasn't Brady, that was an elite player, you had to, find a way to get that narrative in there.
Like guys like Alex Smith are way up on this quarterback wins rate. Joe Flacco way up here on quarterback wins. Just for the entirety of the career.
Well, hey, hold on.
And there's
Mike. Wait, I want to bring up. This sounds like we're talking about the Steelers again, but go ahead. I wanted to put this up for Corey.
But there's a lot of guys that are like, we're talking 20, 30, 40 total career wins below them. Long retired that you look at and you're like, dude. Like, if we're going to make quarterback wins like the de facto one, then how the fuck do you explain Alex Smith, having 120 career wins or, Joe Flacco having 120 and these guys are so great. And then you look down and you got guys like Steve McNair or you have Steve Young, for example, hovering in the 90s, 30, 40 wins behind them. And I'm like, you tell me what fucking world somebody's going to logically go like Alex Smith was a better quarterback than Steve McNair. Just look at the wins and the records, bro. Like, get the fuck out of here.
Well, I mean, honestly, Mike, Alex Smith's a great, again, recency bias and hindsight will ruin any conversation if you want it to. So it's a good point. Alex Smith was similarly to this situation, honestly, with Patrick Mahomes was in the backfield, right, waiting, and you hadn't seen much of him, and they moved on from Alex Smith after having Mike, he was in the MVP discussion that year. Now, the one difference there was the stats were kind of very clear as far as the story and the picture. It was a non-typical Andy Reid offensive. It was low volume. It was not a lot of turnovers, right, and it was not a high-powered yardage crazy offense like that. So but they had a good season and they lost in their they got a bye and they lost in the first round of their playing to, I forget who they played that game, but they moved on from him, right, and they went with Mahomes, and
Patty Mahomes.
We know what Mahomes did the very next season and how it turned out. So again, it's hindsight bias, but had Mahomes been a bust, and even with the situation we know with Alex Smith, you could have said, oh, hindsight bias, they should have stayed with him.
Yeah, that would have been a fucking hilarious one, right? To imagine having that conversation back then, like similar to this one we're having about Sam Darnold.
Again, hindsight bias ruins the trueness of what took place. There were people that thought they made the wrong call. Absolutely.
Let's live in this fantasy world, though. J.J. McCarthy goes out and has a Patrick Mahomes level season right? This year doesn't make
that
it
is
to the
a
Super
fantasy
Bowl.
world. We can all agree, right?
Doesn't make it to the Super Bowl, but he goes out and he throws for 4,800 yards, 40 touchdowns, wins MVP his first year starting. Sam Darnold in the NFC
Super Bowl?
on a new team is in the Super Bowl.
So here's what I was going to say. It's actually funny.
Do you think Vikings fans even give a shit?
I was just going to say though, to me this is actually the best way to illustrate what my point was about. While they could have, like, let's say they bring in Darnold on this contract, right? In the short term, you could argue for sure that they made the wrong financial call, but it's probably a 1 or 2 year fixer-upper deal, right? Like it could be worked on. See, what you just illustrated to me is the best point because of this. Obviously, at that point, to me, if the Vikings have a phenomenal season with McCarthy, people, are talking O'Connell outrageous. O'Connell is the best point of conversation right now. We're talking O'Connell to the moon. Like, hard to believe it could be higher, but to the moon. But to me, the way to look at it, or I look at it, is like that's what they would have had to had success-wise from. That's what J.J. McCarthy would have had to have done,
right,
to make this narrative not exist. That's the crazy thing when you look at the hindsight. To me, that's where to me it's like the backup plan was way problematic, right? It's just at the quarterback position, even if you're sure of J.J. McCarthy, having zero backup plan is just not, because Carson Wentz, even if you think he's an okay backup, we all know there's no real, upside. We know what it is, right?
You know what it is. Which, speaking of it, also a guy who
speaking of a guy that got out, gets everything great. Carson Wentz has a historic contract, and the Eagles get out of it. So yeah,
they do. They get rid of him. Oh, all right. Well, let's.
I got a starred question. We're gonna get to the questions here, so let's answer this, and we'll go to the fantasy questions here.
Let's do it. So, curious if y'all listen to sports talk radio. Stephen A. Cowherd, pardon my take. I do not. Once upon a time, I used to. Anymore, when I catch that kind of stuff, outside of like some clips, you know what I mean? Like outside of some clips or whatever. And of course, some of those are just going to be the fire stuff. I'm looking at it more from an entertainment standpoint. Like some of my favorite podcasts or like sports podcasts, that kind of stuff is going to be like, Shannon and Ocho, like watching that kind of stuff. I forget the name of it, but the one Jeff Teague does with his boys.
Phenomenal podcast. I think Jeff Teague is arguably one of the best storytellers out there.
Yes, he is. The Gilbert Arenas, Nick Young, like those guys. Like I like
that one. I only catch on shorts because they get to screaming and acting a fool. But I'm with you on the entertainment part. I hear what you're saying.
No offense to Stephen A. Cowherd, pardon my take, guys, like that kind of stuff. Like they built up an audience. They've done their thing. Even McAfee, like they have an audience. I find, for me personally, 99% of that shit bullshit, and it's kind of like being in the fantasy industry and doing as what Adam and I have done. We can both acknowledge that we have played in leagues with people who are big in the industry that honestly have no idea what they're doing, or maybe they tell you, like they give their audience advice and then they don't follow through with it. Like they don't, like they're like, trade this guy for this guy. And you're in a league with them and you go and you try to make that exact trade with them. And they're like, no, I need a lot more. I need at least a first or whatever. It's like, I just heard you fucking yesterday say you would do this 1,000. You're full of shit. That's kind of how I find Stephen A. and Cowherd and like some of those guys, Skip Bayless, like bullshit, right? For entertainment purposes, that's all. It's hot takey shit. Like the one that sticks with me, Colin Cowherd years ago was talking about Drew Lock being an MVP dark horse candidate like before the season.
Yeah, I mean,
I
will
what
say,
the fuck is this?
I will also say, I'm probably somewhere in the middle as far as the feeling. I can definitely agree with and attest to some of the things Mike have said. First of all, let me just say that. But like, there's a part of me where, Mike, in the situation of trying to make content and having takes, and especially for me, I'll just speak to myself, having some takes that, when I think about it from an outside the box perspective, right? I look at Colin Cowherd and I remember, one of the most memorable ones for him is going to be LeBron, we're good, bro. We don't need you anymore. Ben Simmons is here, right? Like, but Mike, let me just tell you, the way I was standing for Cam Akers, I don't have a shred of ability to talk to you about any takes. My take is arguably worse, and that's saying a lot. So,
can I give you one caveat on that though?
Yeah.
The difference when we're talking like you and I, right? Or like your Cam Akers, for example, and I have a shit ton of horrible ones you want to go back to. When somebody brings them up, we go, damn, yeah, I fucked that one up, or we'll self-deprecate about like the Trey Lance thing that we were talking about earlier.
Sure.
Both of us fucked the dog on that one. We were horrible on it. Point me a time where you've heard Stephen A., or you've heard Colin Cowherd, or you've heard Skip Bayless go, I was wrong. I fucked this one.
Can I tell you what's
I'll tell you what's shit on this one.
I'll tell you what's really funny about that. because there's a part, I think one of the things that you're kind of talking about, right? And I can speak to from being around people even in the fantasy space that are pretty, they have notoriety, right? And I can speak to from just the personal human lens. There's a egomaniacal thing that goes into anything you do in life. It's anything. It's not just this though. And I think for those guys, it becomes maybe not intended personally by them, but it becomes to the point where people have a hard time with how egomaniacs they become. But Mike, the best one is actually Darnold for Stephen A. that I can point to, which is hilarious because, what's the guy's name? I can't think right now. My sleep deprivation actually sometimes, Mike, will make me forget names that I have no business forgetting. But he put him on the spot, and the whole time Stephen A. is kicking and screaming. Like I imagine like Mike would at times at the beginning of you got to give it to him as far as a bad call, but he's going to come around. But Stephen A. was kicking and screaming like he wasn't going to come around and admit anything. He's like continuing saying how by all the research I was right on this, but he eventually did say, Sam Darnold, I was wrong. But it was about as reluctant and as forced, and he had to ask the question so pointedly. That was when he announced it. So I guess I'm with you. I hear you 100%. I think for me personally, with my time, I listen to bits and pieces of them, but I don't actually the information that I would consume from these, right, doesn't make it even on about 2x is what I listen to before I can stop. I'm not getting enough that really translates to what I'm trying to, give back to you guys from these podcasts. So I've listened to bits and pieces of them. I don't listen to the full things. I will tell you, Mike, what I do like to do, though, if I am in the car and it is pertinent morning time, I will listen more often to local, unfortunately, for my Browns. I will listen to local sports talk radio because that actually is different in the way that you can kind of get nuggets, I think, a lot of times that are coming through different channels. They're not the big media spotlight stuff. It's very political and controlled. The stuff that comes a lot of times through the local headways, there could be meaning in it, and it doesn't necessarily matter as much to the national spotlight, but you get a lot more of a sense of, I think, what's potentially going on and coming around inside the building for different sports teams. But I'll listen to those sometimes on my drive, but I don't typically listen to these like mainstream ones. I'll throw them on at times, but it's not like something I religiously listen to at all.
No, and really what I was going for in the past, like when I was listening to that stuff, is like information. And now you live in this world where, at least for me, most of my information I will get off of, like X, social media, something like that, Instagram. And then for us, the Patreon community, right? Like we have such a good group of guys, especially in the Savage chat, who they'll drop little fucking links from X or some other post out there, and you're like, damn, I didn't even know that happened. Or, like trade information or trade rumors that were coming out, and like legitimate ones. And that's kind of what I was listening to that shit for, that analysis, that kind of stuff before in the past. Mm-hmm. And now it's just not a big part of my, like, I don't watch pregame shows anymore. I just don't care, right? Like, get me to the action. I'm busy. I got my own stuff to do. Let me actually watch the football for myself and get my takeaways. It's kind of back to like the same reason that, at least for me, why I started doing content in the first place on Dynasty is because I was listening to other people, and there were some really, really good ones out there, some ones that I have takeaways from. But like, this is no shade, but I remember vividly in my earlier Dynasty days listening to things like Sirius XM, and anytime there was a Dynasty question come up, and that's primarily a redraft focused media, right? But there'd be Dynasty questions, like call-in questions, that I listened to whoever show it was, give them Dynasty advice, and I would be like visibly pissed off in my truck, like, no, that's fucking horrendous. Why would you do that? That's some of the shit. And the more and more content we do, even NFL focused or sports focused, I don't have a whole lot of takeaways. And really, when it comes to the NFL or NBA, like the two big ones that I'm most passionate about as far as sports, I don't listen to anything like really mainstream on that stuff at all. Most of it comes from X. There's a couple caveats though. Like, I am getting more and more, especially with Paramount taking over the UFC now. I'm 2 for 2 on big UFC fights now that I don't have to pay $90 to watch anymore. UFC. So if there's UFC content out there that you guys recommend, I'm more than willing to check it out because I'm such a neophyte at it. And F1, Formula One racing is also like a slight passion that I have of mine. So Formula One content, like if there's big time, I don't know if they're big time, talk shows about it, like pardon my take, but London talking about Formula One racing, that is shit I'd be interested in because I don't have any built-in shit myself, right? I don't have any takes myself to be like, that's wrong, or that was, look at Chris Sims' fucking quarterback prospect rankings. What the hell is this shit? How the hell do you have Kellen Mond number one? Like, Jesus Christ. Have you ever seen a game in your life? I'm sure it's similar to how when people listen to us, because I see the YouTube comments too, they're like, this guy's an idiot. Like he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Jordan Tyson as a potential 101, you're crazy. Get the hell out of my life. So I don't have that predetermined stuff because I don't know enough about it. So, you listen more intently. You take more away from some other genre that you're not that invested in, I guess I would say.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I think for me especially, my answer also is going to be in the pretty overwhelming majority. I do put on a lot of things that are sports related, football related, constantly just to consume other takes because, Mike, I think for me, I try to use it at least now in the way in which I'm almost to keep myself honest in a way, if that makes sense. Like, because sometimes you'll have takes that are so strong, it's like, maybe I need to think outside the box or think of what if I was wrong or how could I be wrong. So I'd like to know what's going on in the space. But as a whole, I would be considered, if you don't consider me crazy yet, you should. I'm a crazy person. The amount of consuming I do at this point, the amount of time I have for consuming is also not a person to compare to from a normal standpoint. So, frankly, I need more balance in my life, to be honest with you. I need a little more entertainment listening, a little more entertaining, a little more, here and there, having a drink with everybody tonight.
Yeah, having more of a laid back good time. Good time.
So,
which I think is the key for hit that fizz. Let's get to the other question we got going on.
You were spot on, and that's what I was planning to do. Let's get to it, man. Fizz, talk to me, man. Loosen me up.
Welcome to South Harmon. Welcome to South Harmon. Hey, welcome to South Harmon. We glad you here today. Another AMA. Ask me anything. Super chat is cool if you wanna pay to play. Like and subscribe, that's what we really appreciate. Let me introduce you to the tear-down king. Mike McNutted, ask your questions, he'll answer anything. ATM, you know Adam, put them graphics on the screen. Glad you tapped in now, stay tapped in for the team. Hey, everything is posted. Go follow the socials. South Harmon, FF tag us if we get noticed. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today. Another AMA. Welcome to South Harmon, we glad you here today.
And speaking of balance, right back to Sam's arm tonight.
Hell yeah.
So, if you have questions, I don't know, I can't confirm that they're right, but we have answers. All right. If you got questions, we got answers. Okay.
That's true.
They may be opinionated, but that's what we're here for. So, Mike, we got shout out my first South Harmon recruit, Jacob, with his first question. And Mike, this is what I love about our community, especially tight knit. And look at that. He's like, you got to come check it out. So
he's recruiting.
We got Mike. Listen, we've had, if you've seen some of the past expos, we've had a hard time on the recruiting trail before. Jacob Williams, top-notch recruit for us. Devontae Smith for a top 6 projected 27 first in the 203 this year. You had me at the top 6 projected first.
He did have me.
You had me at hello, to be honest, because I knew you were a recruit. But
you did. I'd help Devontae pack his bags.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest with you. Let me ask you this question just for the sake of it. For the, how do I want to say this? For people that are just wondering what market value might be in certain leagues or where certain people's opinions lie. Mike, let me ask you if this is a 203 in this class, what you're saying to this question.
I prefer Devontae Smith because I feel the points would be more pertinent in 2026.
Sure.
But you're not crazy far off, to be honest, as far as how the values are going to shift depending on how people view this class come April.
What I was going to say is that, Mike, it might be light, but I don't think it's disrespectful.
Right. Like at that point, you're like, listen, let's put ourselves in the shoes of April.
Yeah, if I'm in a point where I'm trying to make moves on my team and we're in a negotiating spot, I'm not walking away from the table at this point. I'm asking for more, and I think rightfully so. But so I guess my point is, to me, this is if you're still here and it's still open as an offer, if this is an offer, I urge you to break your phone. Because if the 203 is in addition to the 106 in 27 or a top 6 pick, Mike,
right?
Dude, I mean, so just for reference in this class, what would you need the pick to be?
This is two different questions. It really is, because there's a timeline. There's a timeline, Adam. Like right now, what I need the pick to be, or what I think I would need the pick to be come April.
Let me ask you. Let me ask the more pointed question, so it's more specific.
There you go.
Right now, what would you need the draft pick to be to take the offer for Devontae Smith and ship him away?
108.
Okay. Now, for your second part of the question, you're using a general time frame reference. Are you saying April? What would April need to look like?
111.
It's interesting because I was thinking 111 for me for both times, honestly. Because
for both?
Only because I'm baking in. Here's what I'll say. The reason mine, I agree with what you're saying, and I think it's probably the correct advice or way to frame it. The reason for me is a couple reasons. One, see, Devontae Smith at the moment, and I don't think for any point in the offseason, he doesn't fit the category of players that, in my opinion, has a rising point. Even though that we're probably going to have some potential for A.J. Brown moving on news to happen, right? Because of his age and because of the stuff that he's already shown. So Devontae Smith to me is one of these guys that isn't an elite asset, that doesn't have needle moving upside, right? And that's one of the things, like in highly detailed, actually I'm getting ready to start next week. Knowing and understanding the asset for me is a big thing. Now, I'm not saying that your opinion's wrong for what your opinion is, but for me, I don't view Devontae Smith's value as changing by April. So if I'm moving on from him, I'm okay taking the 111 now. Now, would I like to get the 108? Fuck yeah, of course. I would love to get better than the 111. But 111 would be like, I already know by April, the chance of Devontae Smith moving is going to be so minimal. And if it is, it's going to be super artificial based on a piece of news that's going to go away in a time. So that's why for me, the 111 right now is like, hey, I'm good. But I'm not telling anyone they can have they have their own opinion, their way of looking at it. But for me, it's like, because of the asset, I'm okay just taking, I guess, tomorrow's price in a way for him at the moment.
One of the wide receivers, like you mentioned a good point, his value could go up. We get an A.J. Brown trade, Sean Mannion fixes this offense, and we start to throw the ball again at a good clip. He definitely can go up next year at some point.
Well, let me say this. What I was referring to is in the offseason, for the record. Let me just say, I may not have put that out there. Devontae Smith's value in the offseason, it could go up in very minimally, and it's based on specific information of A.J. Brown moving on. In the season, if he's balling out, that's a different conversation.
The problem is he's capped, right? And we talked about another guy.
Yes.
We talked about another guy. He just had probably the quietest, not a lot of people talked about a wide receiver one season that I can remember in Chris Olave, right? And you and I debated back and holy shit. You and I debated back and forth on where Chris Olave was going to fall. Adam, just to give you an update. Wide receiver 15 on Keep Trade Cut. I don't know if he's going any real higher now that the season's almost officially over as of this Sunday. He might rise another couple spots, but breaking into the top 12 is kind of a stretch. Breaking into the top 10 really feels like a stretch. But that's also a guy that is damn near 2 years fully younger than Devontae Smith. So when you talk about him, when we get to September, he will almost be 28 years old. Even if an AJ Brown's gone, and they start to throw the ball a lot more. Even if he had a fantastic Chris Olave-like season, wide receiver 1 season, dude, we were watching a guy 2 years younger struggling to like climb these fucking wide receiver ranks. At best, what are we looking at? A Smitty at like 18, wide receiver 18? And is it really the 18, wide receiver 18, really that much different than wide receiver 24 where he's at right now?
Well,
No.
well there's a few things to keep in mind here, right? And I think maybe people don't like to hear certain things that I say, and that's fine. Honestly, I wouldn't be mad if you don't like to hear anything I say. But Mike, I'd say this: the reason why is because it honestly goes to numbers. It goes to just it's statistics. And Mike, right now at this very sitting point, Devontae Smith is 72 overall as an asset. Okay, that includes draft picks. Okay, so that means like mid first, late firsts, early firsts. For 3 different years are all ahead of him. The reason why he can't go up, and when I say that, okay, sure, he may rise a couple spots. What I'm saying is he doesn't have. Let me reiterate what I actually said. Needle moving upside. Okay, needle moving upside. That is important to think about that term. The reason it doesn't exist is because of this thing called projection and projecting, and what people will always do in Dynasty no matter what happens. Because, Mike, you know what's crazy when you look at Chris Olave? Let me talk to this. Chris Olave is 25. For those that people are viewing him as an older asset. Straight up. Why is that? Because we've seen enough of it. He's 25. Mike, so much so that he can't pass, or he's right there valued at the same point with Garrett Wilson, who's 25, and has had moments of showing complete alpha, but hasn't actually put it all together from the elite net level we think he can go to.
Yep.
Mike, you know what's in front of him? You know what's near him? Roma Dunze. Emeka Egbuka.
Marv.
The projections don't leave. And even when they do, I got news for you. We re-up the cookie jar. We restock it every year, even in the bad years. They may be burnt cookies, but we put them in there, buddy, I promise. So the problem for him is he's already valued as a wide receiver 2. Right? So when I say needle move, by the way, this conversation has become so hypothetical at this point, but it's important, I think, for most people playing and thinking and listening to this. Because if you look below me, by the way, it was accepted. It is accepted. That's what South Harmon is. Okay, it's off the movie accepted, for those that wanted to know. Okay, but the trade was accepted to. This is egregious. This is taking somebody to the woodshed. I mean, buddy, that's craziness. A top 6 pick in next year's class at the moment, I would say, is probably 20 to 25% more valuable in the market, if not higher, than a current year's top 6 pick.
Yeah.
So you think about that for a second. That already for Smitty is a crazy deal. The 203 is, I mean, holy shit.
So Smitty right now is, what we got him at? Wide receiver 24. Let me drop down. Michael Wilson, Jaden Higgins. Think about their dynasty value right now, respectively. They're 30 and 31. Okay, where they're at. All right, just keep that 30 and 31. Michael Wilson, Jaden Higgins, and how we value them and what you would accept in a trade. One thing we're forgetting, Adam, and I'll stay very conservative with this, but if I told you there's going to be 3 wide receivers drafted in this class who are going to get first-round draft capital, and I'll give you a 4th who's going to be picked at, let's say, pick 38, 39, 40. Somewhere in the early part of the second round, right? And as long as they're not egregious, horrible landing spots, with no quarterback or whatever it is, would you say that all 4 of those are probably going to slot in dynasty value on keep trade cut day 1, immediately before Devontae Smith?
Yes, just because of time. Because of these, what I mean by that is not just the time and the age, but the specific time of the event that's going to be taking place, right? The rookie values in particular go to a peak point around the draft because there's nothing else to talk about, and that's all the football that's happening is. So, Mike, also keep in mind, there's a lot of, situational things here. Jalen Hurts, for a lot of people right now, believe it or not, because he's had his low points, is about as least valued as a quarterback in the NFL world, the way that people view him, right? And so even if A.J. Brown moves on, there's a chance that his market doesn't shift at all.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying it can't go up. What I'm saying is it's not going to needle move anywhere. His tier is pretty much locked in, and basically by the time the draft comes around, Mike, there is more of a chance that he goes down, in particular at that window, than up. Which what we're talking about here is taking on initially a pick of like 203 or 111, which is why I'm telling you at the 111, the way I play, the way I value things, that would be what I would be taking on. We have a question. Well, Mike, do you have something else before we get to this question?
No, I was just going to tie it all together. The reason I say wide receiver 29 or 30 is because it's all but a foregone conclusion with this upcoming draft class that if you were to pull up keep trade cut, he's going to have at least 4 of these rookie wide receivers ranked above him. And all of a sudden now he's down right where Michael Wilson and Jaden Higgins is. And if you go Michael Wilson or Jaden Higgins or the 203 in this class, it feels like a massively different question than Devontae Smith or the 203 in this class. To bring it back to the very first point, when you talked about that deal and what he proposed, it's like at the 203, it's light, but you're almost there already. Like you're almost there already. So when you talk about a 27 pick, I don't give a fuck that he said it was, top 6 likely or whatever the fuck it was mid, which Corey Mercer says, no, it's looking top 3, which is holy hell. Like, You almost had me at the 203 already where we were in the ballpark. Right? Like we're talking business. It's a little light. I'm going to need a little extra on it. You throw just a 27 first in, hell yes. You throw a 27 first in that's top 6, holy shit. And then if Corey Mercer says looking like top 3, oh my God, I about fell out of my fucking chair. Thank you.
Matt, you're welcome. I just want to say this legitimately because we had Buy Apple Pie on yesterday. How about last week? And
Feels like yesterday.
No, but legitimately, your comments are more than welcome, and I want you to have them, even if they're different than mine. I may tell you why I feel the opposite way, but you're not just blabbing, and I want more blabbing from you if that's what it is. Okay.
All the blabbing.
Back to the super chat. Jay doing Jay-like things, right?
Yes.
Saying, wait a minute now. There's a new game in town, okay? It's called Big Dick, and it's me, all right? I want you to answer my question first, which I haven't even laid out, at least not in the super chat. Then answer their own question. So, what have you taken? Is it this one? You've asked a lot of questions, Jay, so not specifying, I'm asking which question
there was
you want
one
us to
just
answer.
above it. It was the first one I saw.
Well, he said Rome.
No,
right?
One just above that one that you're on to.
The one that I was
Swear
on?
to God. Yep.
This one
Something
here?
along the lens. Nope, just above that one. Yep. It was about what was your favorite part of it? There you go. Nailed it. I knew I was in the ballpark.
Well, because that was a question, too, that I had pulled up.
Yeah,
I'm saying there's multiple questions. I want specifics.
He wants us to answer both of these first question and then roll. All right.
Got it. Mike speaks super chat. I get it. All right.
I got it. I got you, Jay.
All right. So, non-football related, what's your favorite part about being a dad? Man, that is... Can I say... When it comes to children, offspring, especially, favorite is a tough thing to answer because not to be, Kevin Stefanski on this, which he will legitimately dodge questions over and over and over again to you. I'm not trying to dodge a question. I'm telling you, it's hard to pick a specific one when it comes to my kids, especially for me. But I'm going to think on it. What do you got, Mike? I'm going to try to think if I can draw one favorite.
I think not only from DNA, like the biological standpoint, right? Like there's part of your kids that look like you, but like the psychology of it, where the kid starts to act like you, and you can actually. My favorite part is actually like pick it out, like, nah, motherfucker's just like me. Like just the way she responded to that situation is the same way I would have responded to that situation. Like, is that the way you raise them? Is that just inherent in them through DNA? Like they're just born with that and that's how their personality is going to be. It's that seeing part of yourself in another human being to a level that you've never seen before. Because I got brothers and sisters and like maybe we kind of look alike or whatever, but we have far different personalities and interests and likes and the way we behave all across the board. Like we may be blood related.
That's what I'm saying. There's a difference in family as opposed to direct. It's
your
actually,
child.
But it's actually legitimately from a scientific standpoint, they're you.
Yes.
They're
Like
you.
and seeing yourself in a mirror in a tiny version of yourself
Right.
sometimes is my favorite part. It's the most trippy part sometimes. And
Sure.
it's sometimes the part that brings me the biggest headache. It's like, you ever try to argue with yourself? It's like, fuck, I winning this. How do you argue with yourself? Who's
Oh,
winning this shit?
I can tell you, Mike, I do it on a daily basis, arguing with myself. And the people that talk to themselves, you're arguing with yourself.
Oh my God. But it is like talking to a little version of yourself sometimes. And it like, don't give me that attitude. And you know for a fact that's the same attitude you would have given the exact same time. Like, you're giving the same attitude right now. So that is definitely my favorite part of being a dad.
It's a tough question to answer. I think there's a lot of things about it I really like. I think one of the things that's what would you say, like MasterCard, priceless type of an idea, right? What's priceless to me is that they're at least for my kids, right? They're really young, so they're going to be turning 4 and 2, right? They're 1 and 3 at the moment, and there's a lot of the things that you either hear or see from them that's so it's so pure in nature, right? And the lack of, I guess, the world imposing terrible things on them or whatever it is, right? To me, that's one of the things that I love seeing, and that I'm always trying to be mindful of how I'm kind of displaying myself to them. So I guess one of my favorite parts is, honestly, this is weird to say, but how they inspire me to always try to be a better version of myself and the way I'm reflecting to them. Because the one thing is, my kids, and I'm sure not different than other people's kids, they, in their young stage where my kids are at, they are at, it's a sponge, man. It is a sponge. So legitimately everything you're doing, you're saying, not only are they taking in, they're trying to emulate, right? So it's a dangerous thing and a great thing, right? If you're taking in the good, but man, it makes me, I guess, have to be a better version of myself, or try to be. It tries to aspire to be a better version of myself, because I don't want to be my bad self, my negative or, pissy self, or say something that they don't deserve to hear. So to me, the best part about being a dad is I'm trying to positively influence my kids, and constantly, Mike, they're positively influence me back. So it can be difficult when you're not sleeping, and when they're young and emotional, and they have no gauge to regulate those emotions. But honestly, if you look at it the right way, or the way I try to look at it, Mike, is that it really is a gift that you can't explain, in the way that it can be positive, for the way that they're not only, while I'm trying to parent them and help them grow up to be good people, that what they're doing on the flip side to me.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Parenting is one hell of a thing. It's one hell of a thing. It's a ride. There's a lot of good. There's a lot of bad, right? There's a lot of frustrating moments. There's a lot of sleep lost and money you'll never get back, right? But it's a fucking ride. It is a ride from start to finish.
It is. I think, there's a lot of layers to it, but there's nothing more incredible than watching how little minds learn and grow, and there's a deep level of reflection that happens when you have new meaning and want to be better for them. That's for sure. That's kind of, I don't know if that was because of what I said, or if that was just, you being on the same wavelength. I have a Bachelor of Science in Evolutionary Anthropology. The amount of characteristics that are passed on is insane. I agree.
The only thing I ever sit back and I wonder is, because I've had nothing but girls, right? Like,
Who you talking to?
I don't have enough testosterone in me to make a boy, apparently. Like, that just doesn't exist.
It's just the swimmers don't swim that fast.
They don't swim that fast. I always do wonder on the opposite side, because my experience has been with girls and parenting as the dad of girls, and especially as they get older. I got 2 kids that are graduated now, and then 1 9-year-old, is a conscious effort to show how a man should treat a woman, and the respect level, and through marriage, the whole thing. Like some marriages get rough and you go through rough times, but showing them that, listen, we're not going to verbally fight. We're not going to scream at each other. We're not going to, there's not going to be violence involved. There's a respect level here that goes. I always wonder on the flip side though how it would be to have a little mini me boy running around and like what kind of fucking terrible values I would instill in that little shit. Right? Like what type of terrible things. Like it'd be so much tougher because when it's a girl, I'm like, listen, like my job as a father is to protect this thing.
Sure.
You know, like get her to 18, all right, not pregnant. Right, and not have daddy issues, like that kind of thing. Like this is my goal, is to get him there. But if it was a little boy, I don't know. I don't know if I would be as good of a father, to be honest. To be like,
you know what's, it's funny you say that because, well,
check
one,
out these titties, boy.
It's funny you say that, one, because I think deep down, everyone listening to this at any point in capacity right now already knows that to be the truth. But two, right, is that I mean, sometimes things in life do happen for a reason, and it's maybe like, you know what? I don't know that this kid would have had any other fair shot if it was a boy. It was going to get this predisposed in. But I'll say this, at least for me, it's like I agree with the points you made, but that I guess also one of the things is like being there and trying to help guide them through the emotional lack of emotional regulation, right? So if I do elevate my voice to my wife, right, and it wasn't in a manner which really I should have displayed, making sure to explain to her as quickly as I can, I shouldn't have done that, right? And because parenting, I think a lot of times can become tough when you're constantly, trying to balance life that you already have and then trying to help teach and guide somebody. And one of the things I think is that it's, as time passes so quickly, you're trying to coach and help teach them, but you have to be, they're always absorbing, even not just what you're saying, what you're doing. So if you're not giving them words which reciprocate, hey, I do make mistakes and I'm not going to get it perfect. I think that's, at least for me, that's important, is not just acknowledging those things and trying to help them teach that. But while still agreeing with everything you said, on the flip side to me is also, like, one of the things I think anymore, and now this may come off as, people are going to take whatever I say however they want. So I just want to make sure I illustrate that I know that you may take this the wrong way, and I don't mean it that way. It's not meant to be misogynistic, but I think a lot of times what I've found is we have a culture at the moment anyway that I think obviously it can be very clear that men maybe aren't taught how to properly respect and handle and be, a man to a woman. But I think more often than not, the opposite is actually true. So for me, I think one of the things I'm trying to do is also instill for them, hey, if you want to get a man that you like, and if you want to have a relationship that's reciprocated on both sides, these are some of the things that you want to do. These are some of the qualities that make you a good woman or wife candidate. So knowing what I want for my girls in the future, I think that's one of the things that I'm trying to instill in a dangerous world right now for, I think a lot of young people, but in particular women.
Yeah, you're not wrong on that too. Like when you look at society as a whole and this view of men versus women, and like we're long past the days of like the 50s and the 60s.
Buddy, that's a different world, right? Like, for example, It's funny you brought up the Teague podcast, and I literally had on today, as a matter of fact. It was a short, right? It's crazy how when those podcasts become, to your point about, like, it's a little bit goes to the egomaniacal point, where when they start to blow up, you might even catch clips that have literally nothing to do with basketball on them, right? And sometimes those are the funniest ones, which helps them grow even more. So I'm like, they had, there's a girl on there. She's not on, at least the ones that I've seen many often, but they're talking about just randomly, like, where they're going to go to have a date, right? So somehow she was kind of clowning Texas Roadhouse, and literally Jeff Teague's like, what's wrong with Texas Roadhouse? And he's like, doing the normal Jeff Teague thing. And then she's like, well, if it was Longhorn or something, I could kind of get behind that. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm sure everyone is like, even if you prefer one or the other, you can't fucking try to tell me some story that these are very different places.
Shit.
Right. But anyway, so all right, whatever. But you're allowed to have your preference, so I'm not going to like fight you to the letter of that law. Maybe you just really like Longhorn, or you've had a bad experience at Roadhouse. But it goes on from there. And it turns into this financial thing. Because the other guy, I don't know the other two guys' names on the podcast, but one of the other two, he's talking about Benihana's now. and she's basically kind of downputting Benihana's, Longhorn, and all these. Like, Benihana's, I mean, what do you expect a date to be? And then they get to talking price point. And she's like, yeah, $50 a plate is cheap. And you're like,
fuck you, lady.
Well, that's the point, Mike, I think, where the pendulum can always swing too far to many ways, right? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that there's times where in that time period you're talking, the 50s and 60s, where there weren't things that women went through that they shouldn't have probably had to go through, right? Ultimately, that comes down to, unfortunately, why it swung this far is because men didn't lead them properly, right? They led them improperly, which turns them not wanting to be led. But, Mike, you think about that, right? In a world today where somebody is up there, and listen, I don't know anything about her, okay? I'm not trying to besmirch the person, but a lot of times it's lack of education and understanding of the fact that, one, men even during courtship are not owed you $50 a plate, and you thinking it's cheap, right? So the lack of understanding, I think, is at a critically unhealthy point, I think, for probably both sides, honestly. I'm not trying to just say it's one versus the other, but for me, for my girls, right, thinking about, like, those type of things to me are extremely dangerous for my girls. The last thing I'd ever want in the world for my girls is to believe that they need to be treated to something more than $50 a plate, even in inflation in 20 years. Like, this entitlement is terrible for our not just men or women, for both sides, I think.
It is.
And so it comes from and stems from entitlement, which to me, Mike, in how to defeat that is talking about, instead of entitlement, what you need to be doing and what kind of things you want to be or strive to be, so that, you know, whatever that is in a man you're looking for, you're able to, you know, have it's not a trade, but you're able to have a good relationship, a healthy working relationship.
As my kids got older, and my 9-year-old currently, I battle that not so much from the relationship aspect, but the overarching point. It always comes up around Christmas time, right? And I'm never going to have ungrateful kids, all right? And I have flat out told every single one of them at some point in their life, because they have thrown a fit or they've looked disappointed or they've not had a smile on their face come Christmas time on some gift that they've gotten. Now, not from us, but from other people. You know, it may be a grandmother or an aunt or something like that. You know, they have this look of disgust, or they act some sort of way. And they have been flat out told, to your sense of entitlement, that if you can't appreciate the effort that somebody put in, you know, spending their hard-earned money or time or whatever it was to get you something, if you can't, even if you don't enjoy it or like it, or you think it's the weirdest shit in the entire world, you're going to put a fucking smile on your face, and you're going to say thank you, and you're going to give them a hug or whatever it is, and you're going to appreciate it in the moment. Because if you don't, the alternative is dad ain't getting you fucking shit ever again, right? You get lights, you get running water, you get food on the table, and that is the end of what you're expected to get. Okay, we can go to the old school of you ain't getting shit. All right, so if I ever catch you at Christmas or gift birthday time, whatever the fuck it is, even having a slight scowl on your face, that is the end. The end for eternity. All right, there's nothing in the fucking law that says as a parent I gotta buy you shit.
Well,
all right.
Yeah, that was going to be one of the things I said, is that I think two things. One, see, Christmas, well, there's a lot that goes into Christmas, and instead of going down a deep rabbit hole, one of the things for me, I think, personally, I love gifting. I love giving. And the thing about Christmas that's a sticky situation or subject is that, Mike, when you do something like that, when it becomes a year-end annual thing, number one, I know for a fact most people don't naturally gift or want to give. So you have a couple issues, right? You have one, a lot of people go through gifting in Christmas, and when it gets close to Christmas time, there's a last-minute gifting precedence. Sorry, that's not a word what I said prior. A precedence, where it's, you know, hey, I got to get gifts for Christmas. And that's not the way gifting and giving should be. A forced thing because you feel like you have to, number one. And number two, Mike, is that it makes this, there's a very difficult balance, I think, to try to regulate as a parent, which is you want to give your kids everything you possibly can to set them up for the best life you can. You want, at least as me as a parent, I'll speak to myself, not everyone, I want better for my kids than I've had, right? And so, but the problem why that's such a delicate balance is, on the flip side of that, is if I give you too much, if I give you things and you don't understand why, or there's a sense of entitlement to them, giving too much to your kids is a surefire way to set them up for failure, right? Because that's not how life works. So, it's a tough balance that I think, to me, with, in particular, like your point with Christmas, if you get to the point where I can see you're not being appreciative of things in life, we need to have a recentering, because you aren't entitled to open up presents here. Now, we do this because it's a typical annual tradition, but just because you didn't like your gift doesn't mean you have to have a bad face about it. It's still a gift. Even if you don't end up using it, or it's not your favorite thing in the world, someone got you something.
Right. Wow. That was a long time on, yeah, exactly.
Hey, Too Jiggy, listen, I'll tell you this. One of the things I love these type of combos when they come around. But two, the best part was my hand was forced. My hand was forced. It was a super chat. However,
That's right.
maybe you needed it more than any of us, although I quite like talking about things like this. I will say, not to get off the subject, because I would love to keep going, but I also don't want to get negative. How about we go back to Rome, speaking of negative?
All right. What are we doing with Rome this offseason?
Well, Mike, let me ask you this. This is, I believe personally, there's a lot of different things to believe and how you want to approach it. But I think they're not the same, but they're similar. Marv and Rome have similar conversation traits to have here. So I think we talk Rome, but understand I think there's a lot of correlation here with the Marv situation too.
On Rome, yeah, on Marv too. Like, you're right. There's a lot. There's a couple differences for me. I think I would be higher on Rome, a little bit more bullish on Rome than I would be on Marv this offseason, for a couple of reasons. One, quarterback stability. I know Caleb Williams is going to be the quarterback next year for the Bears, right? I couldn't tell you right now who's going to be quarterback for the Cardinals. Could it be Kyler? Could it be Jacoby? Could it be somebody else? Oh, no. I don't know what the fuck they're going to do. I don't know who they're going to bring in. Here's the other thing. I think we talked about it maybe a month or two ago. I know the end of Rome season was god-awful. The start was pretty fucking good. Pretty good. And one of the things I'm going to cling to is not only the start, Adam, but the fact that this was the first year in a Ben Johnson offense for everybody on this offense. Like, and they're figuring out roles. And there's going to be some change. Like, I'm not for sure DJ Moore's on the move, but I imagine with the way that ended for it, his current contract, he might not be there next year, right? So this might just be Luther Burden and Rome Odunze. And if I got to make a bet on who I think would get the majority of the targets, my money is going to be on Rome Odunze, because the only time I saw Luther Burden do it was essentially 2 games without Rome in the lineup. So take away DJ Moore, second year of the offense, you get more continuity, you get a stable quarterback situation. I think I'll be a pretty big buyer on Rome. I don't see his price point going up much higher than it is right now, which is kind of like Chris Olave. It's 15, 16, McConkney's at 17, Marv at 18, and Brian Thomas Jr. at 19. They're all very, very similar. I don't see a lot of them moving up. I don't see a lot of them moving down. I will caveat, like I talked about with Devontae Smith, I think as the draft process goes on, there's probably going to be a combination of either, Tyson and Lemon, Tyson and Tate and Lemon. 2 of these guys I really feel like are going to sandwich themselves above where Rome Odunze is currently. So we're probably looking at more wide receiver 17, 18, which makes him an attractive buy, for somewhere around 106, 107, maybe the price point come April. At that point, yeah, I'm willing to fuck. Would I rather draft him or Denzel Boston?
Well, yeah, that I think unfortunately, because we love the pick corollary. I think it very well may be true, but unfortunately in this class there's almost 2 different talking points there because of this class's polarizing nature. You and I both agree it'll probably go up, and I think in a lot of leagues we play in, because we play in them, the picks will go up by nature. But I'm curious to see, I guess, what the picks end up becoming, because I'll tell you this, Mike, in this class, Or honestly, Mike, in the 27 class, if you told me the class was a lot more talented than it is, even I think the 106, 107 to me is a buying point. I was actually just trying to pull up here, to let you know I'm not always prepared for everything. And a lot of times I'm not prepared as I would like to be. When I look at Rome for this year, Mike, this is one of the wild ones. We talk about things we get wrong. Mike, because the crazy part is that at the start of the year, if you look at this in Windows, Mike, this is the best and first time I went as deep as I did on research and felt great about the situation, and it was coming to fruition. Obviously, I didn't speak it to existence. I'm not egomaniacal like some of these people that maybe have shows, okay? But I'm telling you, I felt like I was on the money with this. And then I wasn't pretty quickly, right? Now, I think there's a culmination of things. I don't want to act like there's some one thing that made the season that took place happen for him, right? I do believe, in a way, his start of the year was so great, and after the bye, I think a lot of things happened. I think the way that the teams approached it, I think the first few weeks of the year, teams aren't necessarily locked in and believing Rome Odunze is their alpha and their number one target earner, right? That hadn't been adopted as fact from defenses, right? And I think when that changes, that dynamic changing is massive, right? DJ Moore was an established receiver that people had a lot of respect for, I'm sure, on defensive sides of the ball. So you have that happening. And I do believe, Mike, while there was inconsistency, especially after the bye, there was also two really good games. And I think the biggest thing that I will at least tell myself in the scenario of where I think things could be better and continue to be on the trajectory, which was an early part of the year, I don't know, and maybe Dr. B or somebody can tell me, when this foot issue actually picked up and started. Because the issue in the injury itself is one of those where it's a nagging. It nags and it gets worse, right? And so much so that, Mike, it's funny, we talk best ball in lineup. In lineup leagues, I don't think I can think of a situation where teams got more fucked with Rome Odunze. You might have put him in your lineup in the playoffs, and they tell you, but when I say they tell you, the first notification that went public that he wasn't going to play was at 12:52 on a 1 o'clock start.
Right. Because
he was supposed to play off this injury, and then he re-injured it again. So I don't want to make excuses, okay? But to me, I try to look at things with both extremes in mind, range of outcomes. I think what we saw in the beginning of the year is the way that they want to use him. I think we've seen the talent that he has, but he is inconsistent, and he still has a lot of improving and growing to do. So on the upside, Mike, I think that what we saw in the first part of the year, maybe it won't be that great the entire time, but I think there's a very real scenario where he earns enough targets and is an alpha in this offense that has a ton of talent at the quarterback position as well, and the play caller to put him as a top 10 receiver at some point next year pretty easily. I think the problem with the downside is that to me, it's not an injury. He's not injury plagued. So I don't think that's the issue. But, Mike, is this offense one of those offenses that doesn't have to have a funnel, right? That would be that would be, I guess, the way in which you look at it from a negative perspective. Not that Rome doesn't have the talent and the ability to go off, but does this offense ever really have a Amon-Ra St. Brown target level earner, right? Is that really not in his guaranteed weekly upside in this offense?
I think that is something to keep in mind and consider. I'm going to venture to say, with the way they used him early in the season when they were trying to deploy this offense for the first time, and with DJ Moore potentially moving on, I think we see a lot more of that where Rome is
I agree.
10 targets a game, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Like you bring up the stress fracture and the foot thing too. Like, we don't really know when that kicked in, but that is a pretty significant injury. Like, most wide receivers who suffer that, they're down 6 to 8 weeks, like in walking boots and not playing. And I know he tried to manage it and play through the pain. And I can only imagine when you're out there, running 30 to 40 routes a game, cutting off that foot multiple times and put it on. Like, that's got to be tough. Like, that's got to affect how you play.
There's two. I think it's funny, Mike. my degree was in psychology, and I actually did a paper, a big project on the psychological effect of injuries. And I think there's two things that come about. One, you don't probably trust it as much when you have that type of stress factor, not to mention it probably hurts like crazy and you can't do as much. But two, you think about from the conditioning standpoint, like if you're a wide receiver in the NFL in fast-paced offenses, you know how you don't. But I want you to try to think about and understand the level of conditioning and how in shape you have to be. So, Mike, if you're dealing with that and you're missing practices and you're trying basically not to get, as much pressure on that, your conditioning changes, your body movements change. There's a lot of dynamics that go into it. I don't want to make this as an excuse list for him. I will say, Mike, I'm still a big believer in Rome being a elite level, not just talent, but receiver in the NFL. I think we saw signs of it this year, but again, I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if I didn't, think about the other side and act like it couldn't happen.
He did kind of. It's weird. You remember how JSN didn't have a great rookie season and he was pushed down so far.
The corollaries are so there with both of them for sure.
And then his start in his sophomore year wasn't that great, but the finish was fantastic.
Phenomenal, yeah.
Rome Odunze didn't have a great rookie season. His start was fantastic. His finish was horrible. All I'm doing is I'm just trying to connect the dots here. I like Rome Odunze. I think at his current price point, put a bow on it, I think I'm going to be a buyer as long as it doesn't get too crazy. Like if he starts to get wide receiver 12 and he starts to approach that top 10 range at him, I'm like, okay, everybody's in on Rome Odunze. I'm not going to be as in, right? Like I'm still going to want some exposure, but I'm not going to be as in. I'll be more willing to sell at that time. But if it stays hovering around this and we get Tyson or Tate and Lemon and all these guys pushed above him, so like, okay, now this is more of a buyer's market. All right. This is more, I want to take a few more shots. Like I believe in this guy enough to increase my exposure from whatever the fuck it is up another 10%, in my shares and try to see if I can make some purchases across all my leagues.
Yeah. I mean, I'll say this too. This is kind of a different point, but to me, Mike, this offseason is going to be one of the more weird, yet probably no one likes change to a big degree, I think typically. Most people aren't wired that way. And it's going to be weird, but it's also going to be kind of, I think, important. And I think Warp is honestly, this is not just because it's a product of South Harmon. I think Warp is going to be potentially the most valuable and useful it's been in its existence this offseason, and especially in startups. Because, Mike, I think this is almost in a weird way. While someone here put in, and I love this comment, if Mike can pass down his quarterback hoarding gene, his kids' dynasty teams will be fine. To me, this offseason might be what people didn't know was going to happen, but might have wanted the most. Where in Superflex, we want the quarterback value to go up just like it should be, just because the quarterback is an incredibly important position. But, Mike, this offseason, it feels like going into drafts, you might have the least amount of standardness, right? You might have the most variation, and in particular from position to position and how the way they're drafted, where we're going to see less quarterbacks than we probably have in a long time in the first few rounds, which is going to make, in my opinion, if a lot of the positions are being drafted as equal in those first 6 to 10 rounds, understanding the scoring of your league and Warp for your league could be as literally as valuable and pivotable as I don't even know if that's a real word, but pivoting is ever been. I mean, dude, honestly, you think about basically in the years past, like last year, for example, 2 years ago, especially, like you just didn't want to touch running back at all. Now, if you don't do that, you're not going to get running backs, right? But there's not going to be a standard to the way that people draft, I don't think, which is going to cause a ton of opportunity for, I think, people in startups. So I think with Rome, for example, there's right now, this time of year, running backs are just basically going to go down outside of the elite ones. It's just the nature of the beast because of the way they age. So, Mike, if you're telling me right now there's any truth to, Jonathan Taylor being 20-some spots, 30 spots almost ahead of a Rome, that's a perfect type of asset to explore, seeing about if you are interested in buying a Rome. How you don't have to necessarily pay out the nose in a bad way for Rome Odunze while he's priced at this point.
I'm with you. I'm with you. We know running backs across the board, like we get a little bit sour on them until we get to point scoring season, right? August, September, like their value will return as we have more clarity on who's the lead backs and
Yeah.
the older running backs get sexy. But all from now until that time, Adam, like there's not a lot of Saquon Barkley news or Jonathan Taylor news that's going to prop these guys up. They're just going to keep bleeding and pissing away value. Where wide receiver prospects like Rome, like we can get some really good DJ Moore news. We could get some. They dodge all the bullets in the NFL draft kind of thing. They don't add anybody else in there. You get good reports in training camp, and then listen, X is a perfect place to go to because you're going to get those routes, in shorts where they make highlight reel catches and they're like, oh, this is my sleeper for the year, right? Look at Rome. Look at him make that catch. So like that kind of stuff will rise those guys up, like, and move them back up. So I think now is probably a pretty goddamn good time if you're looking at acquiring some Rome shares to
I mean,
place your chips on the table.
Agree. I think when you think about it, right, the only an asset like a Rome Odunze, right, you can use Marv is basically the same type of idea. Although obviously their view is tainted from what we knew in their rookie season and even going into last year, because they're still young and they're still having shown in moments that upside of an alpha. They're likely to still rise during the offseason. Maybe not crazy, but rise. Like here's the only caveat I think to that would be basically that the incoming rookies are going to be what pushes those potential type of candidates down, which is almost even more to their favor this year because of the way in which, forget pick values and all the stuff you know us for and we talk about a lot, the incoming player list, Mike, just isn't, I don't believe, top-heavy enough and deep enough to make those type of players go down significantly in the offseason. So, they're probably only going to go up even if it is only slightly. A couple questions here. I want to get to this one. So he's talking about Burden and his fall in the draft, right? And here's what I'll say about this. It was interesting thinking about looking at all the mock drafts last year. And basically, it wasn't a matter of if Chicago was going to draft a running back. It was just, are they going to do it in the first or the second round, right? Are they going to do it high or really high? Well, they just drafted like a dynasty manager and said, maybe not all, but a savvy dynasty manager, value. Fuck the shit. Like, you know what? This Luther Burden shouldn't be here. Yeah, we'll take another receiver. And I think it's going to be interesting to see. I think his value's gotten a little bit ahead of what I would hope it had been at this point, given what he did, because I do believe it's going to work out for Rome Odunze and for Luther Burden. I don't know that both. I don't know that Luther Burden's price. I'm not saying it can't happen. I don't know that his price relative to what we saw this season, especially with a lot of his upside coming at the lack of Rome Odunze snaps, typically warrants the price he's at. I do believe that he's going to end up being at least the 2 in this offense, and I think he's talented. I like him. But, man, we're at this point where you're telling me he's wide receiver 20, buddy. Smitty, I'll take. You know what I mean? Like, there's a point where it's like, this is too rich, man. It's like Wagyu. It's perfectly cooked. It might be a little rich,
You summarized it perfectly. I thought the Luther Burden hate for some of the shit that we saw last year was overblown. I thought he was a very good wide receiver prospect. I like Luther Burden quite a bit. I talked about Rome Odunze and the ascension if DJ Moore moves on, second year of the offense, more continuity. Like, I would expect an uptick for him. But to your main point, Adam, which you hit on perfectly, I think his price got way too ahead of where I'm comfortable taking him at. And I'll give you one example of why that is.
Well, I like these. I like real-life examples.
Well, he's up to wide receiver 20, right? Like, he's sitting around T. Higgins and Brian Thomas Jr. and Marvin Harrison. And, like, Marv and Brian Thomas Jr., Ladd McConkey, like, those kind of guys. We saw what they did in their rookie years. Not even. I mean, they blew
monumentally different
blew him out of the
numbers. They're not even.
T. Higgins, when healthy, has wide receiver 1 potential, right? Like, you see that on a weekly basis with that.
T. Higgins is far closer to Rome Odunze dynasty value, maybe even surpasses him than he should be Rome. I'm sorry, Luther. Yeah.
That's where Luther Burden's sitting. And then I go and I'm like, there's another wide receiver in Luther Burden's class that I liked and I thought had a pretty good year and had moments. But he's sitting down and this is one Jaden Higgins. He's sitting down at wide receiver 30, which if Luther Burden was closer to 30 than he is to 20, I'd be like, hey, man, why aren't we talking enough about Luther Burden, right? I'm going to say, why aren't we talking enough about Jaden Higgins? Because you compare the two, target rates are damn near the same. Target shares damn near the same. You want to look at point scoring weeks, usable weeks for fantasy as far as what they produce. Wide receiver 2 or better numbers on the week. Both had the same. Both ended up with 3 weeks. Now, while Luther Burden in week 17, championship week, was wide receiver 1, and everyone's going to remember that, Jaden Higgins had usable weeks in the same number. That is my only hesitation, and you hit it off where it's like, we're going to hype up Luther Burden to this point where he's 20, and then I'm like, oh, why do I want to pay wide receiver 20 prices for a guy that I could get at wide receiver 30 prices that's did the same fucking thing? Like, did the same thing. Year 2 of the offense, more continuity. Like, I make the same fucking arguments for Jaden Higgins I could make for Luther Burden. It's like, but this one's just cheaper. And it goes back to an old series we had, name brand versus off-brand. I'm like, dude, I just take the off-brand for cheaper. Because if I'm wrong, at least I was wrong for a hell of a lot less than if I was wrong on Luther Burden.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question that's non-football related, but it correlates here. Mike, let me ask you, a lot of times, let me just ask you the question first before talking about the holistic point. When you go to the casino, what's your biggest problem when gambling, would you say, if you're at like a table game?
Not walking away when I'm ahead.
And why?
Because I feel like I can't lose. Like, it's just going to keep coming. The wins are never going to stop.
And ultimately, that correlates to you think you can take them to the woodshed. No matter how much you get up, you think it can go higher. You think you can get to that God territory. I'm going to walk out of here with $20K.
I'm already up $1,500. Why not $20K, Adam? It's going to happen. We're on a heater.
And here's the corollary, right? It's funny. I was listening to speaking of podcasts and listening to stuff. There was a financial podcast that I happened to get on today, talking about basically how women are so much more fiscally responsible in the way they invest and the way that they approach it, especially at a young age, where men are very, gambling almost, really. They're not really investing. They're gambling like crazy. And the reason that's important to think about is, Mike, the difference in here with these two is Rome Odunze and Nico Collins. See, people right now are basically, it's a double down effect. It's because we saw it for a moment when Rome Odunze wasn't on the field, number one. But because of that, and Rome Odunze is not established, they think there's this upside shot of Luther going to clearly like wide receiver 8, 5, CeeDee Lamb, that type of a thing. Well, C.J. Stroud throwing 5 picks, and then Nico Collins being there, there's no upside for that. So, to me, this is one of the things that inherently talk. It's funny, DB brought up in the Patreon, in the Discord, how niche best ball still is, and basically how, because of the dominance of lineup, people are willing to shoot incredibly high prices and pay out the nose for the ascension, right, to the elite tier, even if it's not really a reasonable thing to believe based on what you're seeing in front of you. So the difference in price is basically all from the fact that they think Luther Burden can become the him, which, I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't have the talent to be a very good receiver in this league, but like, you're already putting him in the top 50 essentially, based on some moments, frankly, based on moments. I mean, that's the definition of fiscally irresponsible or gambling, right? I mean, I'm not saying that you can't pay off, but damn it, man, we got a lot of irresponsibility if you're paying. Like, for example, if he was going in a startup, Mike, 50, you're telling me he's going in a startup and potentially in round 4, round 5 is insane to me. It's absolutely ludicrous.
That's tough. That's a tough bet to make. It's a tough bet to make for me. Like, we're betting. I'm not going to say ceiling, because there is a possibility, we get one-offs and we get Amon-Ra St. Brown situations or Puka Nakuas, right? Like those guys who, hey, we like what we saw from them, but we're going to move them in the God tier. Like that could happen. But dude, when you start talking, instead of a round 6 or 7 pick, all of a sudden I got to make that decision in round 4 on whether I want them or not. there's just too many other names around that I'm like, I just trust this guy, or he's got a better track record. It's more than 1 or 2 games, right? We're talking 1 or 2 seasons. I've seen this guy do shit on the field. There's a bigger sample size than trying to put my chips down on, like you said, the casino. Not red or black, 50-50, your better odds, 48-48. We're going for 0 or 0 or double 0. Like, no, I'm good.
Right. Well, I mean, I think there's a lot to it. Mike, I got this question. I don't know if you had any other questions you saw here that you want to get to.
Currently, according to Adiko's ADP, he's 6th round, 606, going just behind the 105.
What's funny? What's funny about that? To me, now, part of the problem with ADP this early is there's not really a lot of drafts. So take that for what it's worth, okay? But one of the things early in the offseason, Mike, that I'm very, very more than I probably even should, but I'm focused on like crazy, are those disparities, because those disparities typically speak to inflation in a bad way, right? Like an asset that people are kind of craving, and they just can't keep hitting the keep button on this type of an app. But if you if he's going as a 606 and he's a top 50 roughly asset here, we're talking about something overpriced probably. So
yeah, see, that's my only hesitation is he goes at the 606. That's wide receiver 21, right? Pretty in line with what Keep Trade Cut said. Jaden Higgins, 906, wide receiver 32. You know what I mean? Like, there's your gap.
Right. It's 100%. And to the casino reference, I think a bow on it is not knowing when to walk when you're ahead is the game here, right? So, yeah, I could be wrong. You could end up having a great night. You could have a 10K night ahead of you. But a lot of times, guess what happens is you don't go to 10K and you end up walking with no winnings. Or worse yet, you go back to that ATM. And as the ATM, I hate when you come back and take more money out.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Oh, no. This is a tough one to see. I got thoughts on the Browns' new head coach now that you had a chance to digest it. Can I tell you, I don't know if you saw this today, Mike. Monken, I'll level with you. Wasn't a fan of the hire, and there's not a lot he could have said to make me feel better about the hire.
Mm-hmm.
So, now it's out in the open. Monken opened his mouth today. You see that?
He talked. He spoke. No, I don't make following Browns news.
You're big on X. You're huge on X. It's all over X. That's what X lives for. This
X doesn't give a shit about Browns.
I beg to differ. This thing had a lot of views, and I think warrantedly. I mean, did you see? I don't want to spoil it for you, but I'll give you the Cliff Notes. His ego was bruised by Schwartz's ego being bruised to the point openly talking in a way in which let's live in a world, Mike, where Jim Schwartz is a hot guy, and he's just running hot, right? In that moment, he thought he was going to be the head coach. He really shouldn't have been as pissed off as he was. He's going to come to his senses. Well, in that world, the best way to do that is to let him cool off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not openly go up and say how when I was the OC for the Ravens, I was worried about Myles Garrett and chip blocking Myles Garrett. I wasn't worried about Jim Schwartz.
Oh, yeah, that's not good.
Buddy, I'm telling you, what I'm trying to tell you is these type of things, okay? There was someone on the stream yesterday, or I don't know why I keep saying yesterday, like it wasn't a week ago we were on AMA. Last week, that was, saying he doesn't deserve to be the head coach. He's not guaranteed that. All of these things correlate so much with the fact of this organization is being run like a complete train wreck. It's absolutely a dumpster fire, and it's not just because of one or two things. They all tie back together. And I also think about, Monken. I don't know if you saw, there was a video with him. Shadur came into his office. They met for the first time when he was officially the head coach, right? And you could just tell by the dynamic. Well, he was trying to say, "Hey, I was trying to draft you, but we didn't get to you, dude. He didn't go until what round? That's not some flex. There's not some flex trying to act like you were trying to draft him, number one. But two, do you understand this guy's 60 years old, his first head coaching job? Do you know, like, think about, for me, I'm at the point where I know I'm getting old, where I have sometimes, for younger people in their early 20s, there's a little bit of a difference now for the first time in my life. Like, I'm like, damn, I'm not as cool as once I was. You know, I'm not as young as I once was. Do you know what the relationship is for someone that's nearing, you know, disability, retirement type things in their life?
Right.
With a 23-year-old, you know, hip-hop culture guy like that, it's just, there's so many things about this. I've had enough time to digest it, and it, unfortunately, is my fear of it was sour. Something was wrong with it when I ate it, and now it's coming up horribly. Let's get back to this question, though. He says, the 25% number on 27 picks quantifies the phenomenon. Runner-up this year, moved my 27 for Stroud from a year-down rebuild. Are 27 picks a sell with that 25% number? I'll tell you, this type of a question is, I think, one of the non-standard answers. A lot of ways to look at it. But to me, one of the most fun parts of the game is this aspect of the game of Dynasty. So, Mike, I'll let you answer first, though.
I'm seeing people do some absolutely crazy things for 27 already, and maybe it's just playing the game long enough that I've seen this before. Like, one of our favorite things to do is point back in history at other times that we've seen similar behavior, and then see how that worked out for a lot of people. And the one I could point to is the 23 class, where that was going to be the God mode class, and it didn't really turn out that way for a lot of people, right? So if we're doing something, well, I can acknowledge 27 looks like everything that you want, right? We're going to have, you see all the posts about all the quarterbacks, especially the ones that went back to school, and everybody who's eligible to come out there. And obviously we have this kid, Jeremiah Smith, who's all world everything. There's a lot of time between now and then, right? Like, where all of a sudden people who are doing crazy things, like, listen, I'll take a late 27 first. I'll give you, a quarterback in Superflex like CJ Stroud. And this feels like, I'm banking on this potential. All of a sudden that pick turns out to be 109, and the class rolls around, and we're like, man, I feel real good about the top 6 picks of this class. Like, we got these quarterbacks, we got Jeremiah Love. We running backs, there wasn't anything to speak of. Like, all the running backs ended up being terrible. Like, they're all shit, right? And the next wide receiver, we hope we get another one drafted in round 1. That's kind of where we're at. We're like, and all of a sudden we're like, fuck. What did I do?
It was a roller coaster for JSN, the receiver, but it turned out really great. Yeah, I'm with you. Go ahead.
It's just one of those things. We've seen it before. Like, people kind of like poo-pooed on the 24 class for the longest time, Adam, and it turned out to be the best class. I think you and I, while we were playing Dynasty, as far as how it turned out, especially after year 1. Now this year, Fizz and I just did
there you go,
like this weird mock draft where we had to draft 25 rookies versus 24 rookies, and I thought I was doing him a favor by giving him the 24 class. And let's just say, for fantasy purposes, where we stand right now, it's like, I get it. For Dynasty, you still want the 24 class, but my 25 class for production this year smashed the shit out of you, dude.
Well, yeah.
But 24 turned out to be one of the best we'd ever seen, and not a lot of people were talking about how great that one was. So, I don't know. I'm pretty hesitant when I see, listen, I know it's at the top and kind of the prize that everybody has their eye on, but there's only going to be one person in your league who's going to get to draft Jeremiah Smith, right? Like, outside of that, we think it's going to be good. Like, it sounds pretty good, but I think we're letting the hype run away a little bit too much on this.
So I think I heard you, but for everyone listening, let me ask for a synopsis on the answer. Are they a sell?
Yeah, I think they're a sell.
Okay.
Adam, you're seeing it up across the board. It's in real leagues. It's in leagues you and I play in with a lot of smart people who are very savvy. You're seeing it on Keep Trade Cut and how they rank, future picks. Like, 27's getting to a fucking level that is just ludicrous. That is, I'm not going to say impossible to meet expectations of what everyone has in their mind, but it feels highly unlikely at this point. We're gonna meet the expectation, let alone exceed them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let me. I don't want to be long-winded at this point of the night. I know we probably got some people barely hanging on. Speaking of us all getting old, right? Go ahead.
Let this stick in. Just the prospect on keep trade cut, and we're
You're
2
gonna
years
go.
out.
I was just about to say what you're gonna say. I already know it. Go ahead.
We're 2 years out on this, right?
I was just gonna go to these picks value. I'm literally got it queued up right here. The 27 mid first.
The one thing you and I will always say about defending the 26 class, and rightfully so, while this is poo-pooed, is these picks are still going to rise, right? Like we see it every year, even in bad classes, they're going to rise in value, right? As we get closer to the draft. And once there's real players attached to them, they're going to be higher than wherever these pick numbers are. Keep in mind this 27 class is 2 years out. An early first in 2027 is already the 22nd ranked asset on keep trade cut.
I was just going to go through this. Dude,
just ahead of Tet McMillan and Amari and fucking Hampton.
Really, to me, the problem with this is, but you already kind of mentioned this. This, in my opinion, is essentially they're saying Jeremiah Smith, if you had to wait on him, no Devi, no C2C, is more valuable than Tet McMillan. Is what the way in which people are, I think, answering the question, right?
One more year of an absolute zero on your roster, lineup or best ball doesn't matter, is worth more than Tet McMillan.
Now to give you the full picture, a 27 mid first, which by the definitions like the 106, is ahead of Rome. Okay, so again, I want to give you the full picture though. Okay, Mike, the reason though that's so crazy, and I just want you to think about this from two standpoints. The reason I think this is such a tough question to answer is all about the way you play the game to me. See, because Mike, right now, as crazy as it is to say Jeremiah Smith's the 22nd overall asset, let's say, and the fact that while true, Jeremiah Smith can only be drafted by one team, let's live in a world that we're a year forward from now. I would give you a 0% chance that is the 22nd overall asset in Dynasty on this page. I will. While this is the first time I've ever seen that I can recall, Mike, a gap of a year out pick, even in 23, Mike, it wasn't this bad on Keep Trade Cut, albeit Keep Trade Cut was a newer platform at the time. Mike, Keep Trade Cut right now, fuck time decay, fuck everything. This is today. A 26 first is a 36. Right? So you're telling me a year out pick is worth the 22nd. Mike, I promise you next year, that thing is going to be, Jeremiah Smith's going to be a top 10. The way in which quarterbacks especially are going, he's going to be a top 10 asset. So here's the problem. While they are overvalued today, this is what I want you to think about with time and with this question. I believe in a year from now, the same 25% is going to be baked in. So the question on selling is really this: understanding your league mates and understanding how you play the game. Why sell it today if you know, albeit overvalued, it's still going to be overvalued in a year from now? You're basically selling it. The problem with selling these picks right now is you're probably selling an appreciating asset. That's tough. That's tough to do. So honestly, for me, Mike, it's this: if I'm a contender and I know I'm ready to still contend, and I can liquidate my pick at 25% over market, let's say, right? And I'm getting into a elite asset. Okay. Then I'll do it now probably. But on the flip side of that is so many other worlds. Like if I built up leverage at all in the 27 class, the answer is absolutely not. I'm not selling today. I'm absolutely not giving up my leverage. If I'm not a contender, why am I selling a 27 pick at all right now? This is what people, right or wrong, are telling me is the holy grail of their entire existence. So it's a convoluted question that I think has different layers. What I will say about this, since you said our 27 picks a sell, first rounders, I'm talking with all of that. To me, Mike, second rounders and beyond are 100% a sell. Not even close to a question. Because if Jeremiah Smith is a large reason, let's just say he's a large reason why 27 class is being dubbed as high as it is. Now, it's a deep class. I think there's a lot of talent in the class. But the moment, this is a fallacy for Dynasty, period. The moment the second round starts becoming inflated with the same rate, where those are immediate disposable sells right now.
Here's a great question I just want to pose to you to close out the show on Jeremiah Smith and
What
talking
up,
about these
fam?
20. So we're talking about how high just the possibility, and you put it perfectly. If there was no Devi and you had to choose today, people would choose him as a 22nd asset. You know what I mean?
They're drafting him in a startup,
Absolute-
potentially in the first 2 rounds.
Right. As an absolute zero, like guaranteed production. What does that mean for C2C leagues where you're getting production on the college side, have the possibility of winning money, where he's wide receiver 4 in production?
Right.
And then you look at the NFL side already. Does that make him the number 1 overall player in C2C leagues as far as value goes?
I don't see why not. I mean,
Where like, is there a scenario where you could play in a C2C league and somebody be like, I need Bijan Robinson plus?
the only thing, and I there's a lot of aspects about C2C I like. I will admit part of the issue is like it's to answer the question, I think it can be a little bit gamed. So, meaning, Mike, if you say you want to go for it on the NFL side, would be the only way, right? Like I'm locking into, I'd rather win now on the NFL side. That's the only way in which you're going to say no. You don't want to have Jeremiah Smith as the number 1 player. Right? We know that, because if you're telling me you're going to get his college production this year, although Arthur Smith is a different combo, but get his college production this year, and then he's going to go. Yeah, absolutely. What's bad about this? He's young, and I get his elite production now. So, but I just think, Mike, it's crazy because as someone that's leveraged the 23 class, as someone that's drafted the whole class, I can speak to the flaws, and I can also speak to the upside that is guaranteed to stay the same with the 27 class because of the way it's viewed. I think, Mike, what's also really crazy when you think about this, look at some of the assets in here real fast, just for a second here, that are still hella valuable, that are so young, which means the reason I'm talking about this is because it's going to speak to how the class is going to appreciate 27. Mike Trev just got 3 touches. I don't know what his snap percentage was. I still haven't looked that up. It's so bad I don't want to see it. It's a top 30 asset.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the youth that's currently here, this is still, until next week, technically, like a little bit more point scoring season. You could technically trade vets in this window typically over the lifetime in Dynasty for more of an appetizing price than you will be able to. It's going to plummet here in a month, right? So in that time, Trev is still a top 30 asset. Trevor Lawrence. Like, the young players just have – we're talking about Marv and Rome potentially next year, this time, being catastrophes. They're still top 50 assets. So the 27 class, by the nature of the Dynasty gamer, isn't going down despite the fact that it's overvalued. That's what makes it a conundrum.
It's very strange. it's very strange to me how this is going to shake out. But yeah, I think to answer the question as a whole, I'm with you. If I'm not competing or not trying to be a contender, I got no reason to sell these picks because they're still going to rise. They're still going to go up. People are still going to do absolutely crazy things, and they're going to do crazier things the closer you get to that class.
Right. It's essentially having a lottery ticket that doesn't have a date of publishing, right?
But if I'm any type of like trying to forward thinking contender, I'm okay cashing out.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay.
I think it's important just to specify for elite assets, but meaning like top assets that don't have a lot of tank value because of youth. Here's an interesting point. 3 Dynasty teams and have made 0 second-round picks in 3 drafts. Second, massive, overvalued everywhere. Now, we did a 4D episode on this. I don't know if you heard it, but from the hit standpoint, it's another convoluted thing. From the hit standpoint, seconds are about as poor of an investment you'll make. Yeah. That said, we just had at least a 10-plus minute conversation about Luther Burden not just being a top 20 asset, Mike, but what? People are thinking there's a moonshot here. Like
there's moonshot.
Yeah, so it's a dangerous game, but you just got to, Mike, walk at some point. The game in the second round picks is to walk at some point, not to get stuck at the casino till the money's all gone.
Gotta walk. Yeah. Gotta walk away. Right, you're up a little bit of money, cash out. We're good.
Jaxon Smith going to be a good tutor for Jeremiah.
Oh no,
that's cold. That's really. That's the way we're going out. Well, Mike, anything for you before we get out of here? It's kind of crazy, man. Next week, come on here. Super Bowl will be over. Football season officially behind us, and it's going to be a long offseason.
We got nothing to talk about but rookies. And speaking of rookies, if you guys haven't checked it out, I started a new series, prospect series. I started with Jordan Tyson. That was dropped last Saturday. That's when we dropped that first one. This one, Carnell Tate. All right. I did a Carnell Tate prospect breakdown on what I think of him tomorrow. Tomorrow, early evening for you East Coasters, Midwest guys. I mean, it's still afternoon for us. And on the West Coasters, I don't even want to think about it. It does have to be, other than like watching college football, which, you know, like some of the big games will start at noon Eastern, Adam.
Yeah.
Could you imagine having to be on the West Coast and like, dude, I got to get up and start watching football at 9? And I couldn't even fathom those damn Europe games. For me, it's 8 o'clock. That shit's like 6 a.m. on those. But the West Coast has it so easy. Like, I think about these like Sunday night football games starting at like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
That's golden.
Oh, absolutely. Buddy, I mean, your West Coast right now, I mean, even us going 2.5, right? We're 2.5 plus.
8:30.
Right
8:30. They're still
buddy,
they're gonna watch like 3 episodes of their favorite show before they go to bed and then go to work tomorrow.
I still got a couple hours of fool around time before I have to lay it down. You know, I mean, we're
crazy.
Yeah, there's their advantageous parts, but there's also I will tell you, my sister lives in Vegas right now. There's also the downsides. She has to have high school babysitters come over and have her kid being watched. I mean, I'm talking early in the morning, which you got to find high school people that were willing to come over your house at 5 a.m. Like,
crazy.
You got to be out the door at 5 a.m. It's nuts. So
I just say all that. Keep on the lookout for the Carnell Tate prospect video dropping tomorrow.
Be out tomorrow. 5 p.m. Eastern is roughly the time we're aiming for.
Massive favor, not only for this show, but for anything that we drop on this channel. Give it a watch. Give us a like. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And feel free to comment. We love to hear back from you, and it helps us out so much on the algorithm, boosting it to everybody. Maybe you don't want us to be seen by everybody. You want to keep us for yourself, which is fine too. I respect that. I respect to keep the circle tight. Fuck them.
People,
fuck the rest of my league.
I'll admit to being the cast off, the one that people want to not associated with for bad reasons. Okay, so it's okay that you hide me for that reason too.
Oh no, we're getting into dangerous territory, and this wine's kicking in. But that's all I got, Adam. I appreciate everybody who tapped into the show. We appreciate our audience. You guys are the best, absolute best.
That part is not to be denied and can't be said enough. We appreciate every one of you. Make sure you're tapping into Mike's video on Thursday. I'm going to try to have a video out on Friday. If not, it will be out by Saturday. We're trying to get back into the trade show. That'll probably be next week. But just know that while the Super Bowl's over and football's technically over for the season, and the 26 class sucks, we're going to be here the whole time, buddy. You're going to get every single one of us talking shit about how great the 26 class is or isn't. We'll see you back here, same time, same place, next week on AMA. We love you. Peace.
Peace.